In the apocalypse of low temperatures, I refused to let my ex-husband's family enter. My daughter had a big quarrel with me, scolding me for being heartless and unworthy of being her mother. I ignored her, heartlessly locked her in the room, and drove away the intruders alone. At night, my daughter apologized to me, saying that she was just confused by family affection for a moment and spoke without thinking. She also took the initiative to take on the task of keeping watch at night to relieve my burden. I thought my daughter had finally become sensible. Unexpectedly, while I was asleep, she opened the door, not only welcoming my ex-husband's family into the shelter but also throwing me, who was only wearing pajamas, into the icy world. My daughter's face was ferocious, and her eyes lit as if she wanted to devour me. Bitch. It was you who insisted on getting a divorce and separated us father and daughter. Now you still want my dad to freeze to death and make me lose my father's love forever. Go to hell. Driven by the will to survive, I desperately pounded on the door and shouted until my throat was hoarse. But my daughter turned a deaf ear. On the verge of death, through the warm yellow light, I saw their family sitting around the table happily, eating the ingredients I had worked so hard to find. While I was hungry and cold, I soon froze into an ice sculpture in the snow at 40 degrees below zero and died with hatred in my heart. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to a week before the apocalypse. 1. It's so hot. What the hell kind of weather is this? My daughter's complaining voice came from the living room. I suddenly opened my eyes, jumped up, and instinctively took a defensive stance, ready to resist the next wave of biting cold wind, but the expected severe cold did not come. Instead, a sticky and sweltering feeling surrounded me. Is it a dream? I murmured with trembling lips and twisted myself in the middle of my waist. Ouch, it hurts. It's not a dream. I opened the window, and a rush of hot air came in. The sun was scorching, and the outside world was not yet covered by ice and snow. Everything was as usual. I picked up my phone. It was June 1st, 2024, a week before the end of time. I was reborn, the anger of being betrayed in my previous life, the oppressive feeling of death, and the joy of surviving after the disaster. All these complex emotions mixed together and turned into a clear tear that fell on the back of my hand. Looking at my tender and smooth hands, I was lost in thought. In order to search for food in the thick snow, my hands were already covered with frostbites and scabs, thick, swollen, and ugly. Only at this moment did I have the real feeling of being reborn, remembering the scene before my death in my previous life. I gritted my teeth, and a strong hatred burned in my chest. Since God has given me a chance to do it all over again, this time, I won't let anyone who hurt me go. 2. While I was in a daze, my daughter pushed the door open and entered. Seeing the tears in the corners of my eyes, a flash of disgust appeared in her eyes, and she opened her mouth to accuse me. Mom, you still haven't gotten up to cook at this late hour. No wonder Dad dumped you and ran off with Aunt Wang. Aunt Wang is good at both socializing and cooking. She is proficient in everything from music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and she even specially got a chef's certificate for my dad. Look at her, and then look at you. It's not that I'm saying this, but you're already in your 30s. Do you still think you're a young and beautiful girl? My daughter looked at me with contempt all over her face. Even if you look at yourself in the mirror until it breaks, you can't change the fact that you're a poor, ugly, wrinkled old hag. I sneered. You keep calling me an old hag and spare no effort in mocking your own mother. You really are the child of a scumbag. You're just like your father, an ungrateful person. My daughter widened her eyes, surprised by my counterattack. What did you say? I smiled bitterly in my heart. No wonder she was surprised. I had always doted on her and taken good care of her. I had never said a harsh word to her since she was a child, but what did my love and care get me in return? In my previous life, she shut me out and watched me freeze into an ice sculpture in the snow. I no longer felt soft-hearted. I'm talking about you, you ungrateful girl. Whoever wants your father can have him. I was the one who filed for divorce. It wasn't your father who dumped me. I didn't want him. Your father actually knelt in front of me like a lapdog and begged me not to leave. As for your Aunt Wang, she buys you game skins all the time and encourages you to skip class. Do you really think she likes you? Don't be naive. She wants to ruin you so that her son can take your place. My daughter shouted. She's still better than you. They're all better to me than you are. All you know is to force me to study, sign me up for all kinds of cram schools, and make me eat vegetables. You just want me to have a high education, look good, and have a good figure so that I can marry well and repay you in the future. Grandma has already told me that you just want to sell me for a high bride price when I grow up. Don't think I don't know. My heart felt a chill. My more than 10 years of care for her couldn't even compare to 2 words of provocation from her grandma. She really is an ungrateful person. The last trace of family affection was cut off by her words. This daughter is hopeless. Let her be. I don't want her anymore. Seeing that I didn't say anything, my daughter thought she had hit the nail on the head and said triumphantly, I guessed it right, didn't I? You still think I'm a 3-year-old child. Looking at her complacent face, I sighed and said, call your father and ask him to come and pick you up. My daughter looked at me in disbelief. Are you really willing to let me go? I nodded. I don't know which words stimulated her fragile nerves. She was silent for a while, and her face turned red as she shouted at me, "Fine, I'll go. It's 1,000 times better to follow my dad than to follow you. Don't expect me to support you in your old age." What's wrong with her? I'm giving in to her wishes, but she's still not satisfied. I glanced at her indifferently and reminded her, "If your father doesn't want to pick you up, call your grandma. She will definitely be willing to take you in." What answered me was my daughter's angry snort and the loud bang of the room door closing. I sneered, "It's not me who really wants to sell the daughter, it's your good grandma, but I will never say this out loud. I'm really looking forward to seeing them fight among themselves." 3. Before long, my daughter's hoarse and desperate questioning voice penetrated the door panel and reached my ears intermittently. I scratched my ears, closed 3 doors in a row, and hid in the kitchen to barely block out the noise from my daughter. I didn't need to listen to know that my ex-husband wouldn't take over this big trouble of hers so easily. His family had a serious preference for boys over girls. In my ex-husband's eyes, our daughter was just a money-losing burden. Before the divorce, he was willing to be nice to her only because I was earning money to support the family and was also his superior. After the divorce, it was just flattery. Only my daughter couldn't see it clearly and thought that her father was a perfect man and that all the mistakes were mine. I pressed my forehead. It's all my fault for being a shallow person who liked good-looking people when I was young. I thought that good-looking people were all good people and didn't carefully examine their character. I have a clear conscience towards my daughter. I gave her the best material conditions, the best education, and all my love within my ability. Even when I found out that my ex-husband had cheated on me several times, I endured it and waited until my daughter's college entrance examination was over before breakout. I gave her everything I could, but the result was still not satisfactory. Maybe it's due to genetics. I can't find any other reason. Once you enter a dead end, you should turn back in time, thinking of the tragic situation in my previous life. I didn't hesitate any longer. I went back to my room, changed my clothes quickly, took the car keys, and went out. There were more important things waiting for me to do now. Before going out, I took one last look in the direction of my daughter's room and silently bid farewell to the me who had given everything in my previous life. I stopped in front of an orphanage in the suburbs. My best friend Savannah waved at me at the door. I just told the children that the magpies on the tree were chirping, and something good was sure to happen today, and here you are. I hugged her and said, "Stop joking." My voice choked involuntarily. Savannah and I grew up together. We were both orphans, and this orphanage was our home. When we grew up, I chose to get married and start a new family, while Savannah took over the orphanage alone after the old director passed away. She is the closest person to me in this world. Seeing me cry, Savannah panicked and asked me if someone had bullied me. She rolled up her sleeves and was ready to fight for me. I stopped her and pulled her into the office to tell her what had happened in my previous life. After I finished speaking, Savannah was silent for a long time. I thought she didn't believe me and quickly took out the evidence I had prepared in advance, but she suddenly hugged me so tightly that I couldn't breathe. After a long while, she said, "Mila, it must have hurt a lot, right?" The emotions that I had finally adjusted were brought back to the surface by her words. My own flesh and blood daughter had never cared about my feelings. In the end, it was Savannah, my friend with no blood relation, who cared about me. My nose felt sour, but now there wasn't much time left. There was only a week until the apocalypse, and we had a lot of things to do. When the cold wave strikes, we will have plenty of time to feel sad. Savannah was also a sensible person. She immediately pulled me onto the freight truck that the orphanage usually used to buy things. The freight truck was donated by kind-hearted people in society, and the 5 big characters Qingshan Orphanage were printed on it. I stopped her. "Savannah, we can't use the car with the orphanage's name on it. If someone with ill intentions remembers it, it will be a disaster in the future." But Savannah didn't care. "What's the big deal? Didn't you say that in the apocalypse of low temperatures, it's an icy world? And people will lose body heat if they stay outside for an hour and freeze into sculptures in 2 hours. Don't worry, we're in the suburbs. It's a very remote place, and there aren't many people living within a 10-mile radius. Even if someone knows they can't get here, there won't be any trouble." I shook my head. "No, people will do a lot of crazy things for the sake of survival. We can't take the risk." In my previous life, I also thought that people outside couldn't get in. But my ex-husband's family managed to do it. They robbed all the way. There were residential buildings and houses in the communities everywhere along the road. Relying on their large numbers, they slowly moved to my house at a speed of walking half an hour's journey a day, just because my daughter sent them a message saying that I would go out 3 times a day to look for food, and she could not only eat meat every day but also had coal to use. If people knew that the orphanage had a large amount of supplies, the consequences would be unimaginable. Savannah thought I was being too paranoid, but she still followed my wishes and covered the big logo tightly with a tarpaulin. After covering it up, I was still worried. My experience in my previous life made me realize that in the apocalypse, we not only need to prevent extreme weather but also people with ulterior motives. Safety is of utmost importance. Savannah and I discussed and decided to stockpile food in the last 3 days. It's still hot now, and the orphanage's cold storage is not enough. If we buy it now, it will spoil easily. Now we need to solve the safety problem first. We armed ourselves and went straight to the building materials wholesale market. We bought thickened steel plates, steel pipes, steel structure doors and windows, anti-theft nets, explosion-proof glass, blackout curtains, cement. And we even bought two thick stainless steel door bolts. We also bought an electric fence. The boss was very enthusiastic and asked us if we were going to open a farm to prevent wild boars from running away. Savannah and I managed to deal with his questions one by one. Finally, we went to the waste recycling station and bought 200 glass bottles, ready to mix them with cement and smear them on the outside of the orphanage as the first line of defense. Next, we bought some necessary large-scale daily necessities, such as solar panels, diesel generators, coal, solar water heaters, simple wind power generation devices, antennas, thermal insulation cotton, and so on. Although there is basically no sunlight in the apocalypse, I followed the principle that it's better to buy more than less. If we can use even one of these solar devices, it will be a profit. After buying everything, we first made a trip to the orphanage to unload the goods. And then we went straight to the supermarket. There were a lot of children in the orphanage, so we bought 500 boxes of mineral water, 500 boxes of sanitary pads, 500 boxes of hand warmers, power banks, toilet paper, towels, toothpaste, toothbrushes, shower gel, and clothes, shoes, notebooks, and pens for various age groups. I saw that she also placed an order for a lot of teaching materials and world-famous books online. Looking at Savannah, who is holding a lot of school supplies in her arms. I seem to have returned to our teenage years. I caused trouble, and she took care of the aftermath. Savannah has always been thoughtful and meticulous. While she was organizing the list, I made a trip to the pharmacy. I bought 20 boxes of commonly used medicines, such as vitamins, alcohol, bandages, blood pressure monitors, blood glucose meters, commonly used antibiotics, and allergy medicines, under the pretext of loving donations. When I moved these things to the car, Savannah also came out after turning around in the adjacent agricultural and trade flower, bird, fish, and market. She bought a lot of crop seeds and young chickens and ducks whose names I didn't know, although I repeatedly emphasized that these things would be difficult to survive in extremely cold weather, but Savannah still insisted on buying them. She said that they were the seeds of hope. 5. We made a total of 20 trips, and it was already dark when we finished. Savannah commanded the children to unload the goods in an orderly manner. The reinforced anti-theft door we bought during the day had already been installed. There were a lot of people in the orphanage, and not all of them were young children. There were also quite a few older children. To save money, whenever there was any damage or maintenance needed for the hardware in the orphanage, these older children would do it themselves. They would search for tutorials online and figure it out slowly. Over time, they could do it quite well, and I was worried about the mobile banking on my phone. Although I had earned a lot of money over the years, I would send money to the orphanage every month and also donate to the Ivy Welfare Institute regularly. This big purchase today directly reduced my savings to a 3-digit number. Tisk, I'm short of money, I thought to myself, and without stopping my hands, I pulled my ex-husband's phone number out of the blacklist. I might as well get some interest from him first, as I expected. Less than 3 seconds after I took him out of the blacklist, my ex-husband's call came in. 6. My daughter's voice came from the receiver. Her voice was a bit distant, as if she was talking to someone next to her. I told you that she would definitely answer as soon as I called. Her voice got closer. Mom, it's me. Yeah, I hear you, I replied indifferently. My reply seemed to give her courage, and my daughter's tone became more forceful as she ordered, Mom, you sign an agreement with Dad and give him 20,000 yuan in child support every month, then I'll live with Dad from now on. It turns out that when people are extremely speechless, they really will laugh. Hearing me laugh, my daughter thought I had acquiesced and showed off on the other end of the phone. I told you that my mom loves me the most, not to mention 20,000 yuan, for my happiness. She would even give 200,000 yuan or 2 million yuan without hesitation. There were waves of flattering voices on the other end of the phone, including my ex-husband's, my ex-mother-in-law's, and that Mistress Aunt Wang's. I laughed even louder. This was like someone bringing a pillow just when I was feeling sleepy. I had just been thinking about how to trick my ex-husband into willingly handing over the money, and now they had provided me with the perfect opportunity. I chimed in. Yes, Audrey is right, not to mention 20,000 yuan or 2 million yuan, as long as my daughter is happy. I'd even give 10 million yuan. My ex-husband was overjoyed. 10 million yuan, really? The fish had taken the bait, and it was time to set the trap. When have I ever lied to you? But you know that over the years, our daughter has always had the best of everything. She eats well, dresses well, goes to a top school, and has top-notch teachers. I've spent all my money on her. And I really don't have much savings left. However, considering that my daughter will be living with you in the future, and she has been spoiled since she was a child, I definitely can't be stingy with her when it comes to money. The villa that my daughter and I are living in now is worth 20 million yuan. It's not only in a great location but also in a school district. Your child with Xiaowang is almost in high school, right? This house is just right for one middle school in the city. How about this? I'll sell it to you at half price, for 10 million yuan. My mother-in-law's shrill scream pierced my eardrums. What? You want us to pay 10 million yuan? Where do we have 10 million yuan? My ex-husband also wanted to say something, but I interrupted him, my voice tinged with anger. What are you shouting for? What's wrong with 10 million yuan? If I put this house on the market, it can easily sell for around 20 million yuan within minutes. I'm practically giving you money on a silver platter, and you're shouting at me, damn it, you want to buy it, but I don't even want to sell it anymore. As I said this, I was about to hang up the phone. The voice of the mistress, Aunt Wang, came from the other side. No, sister, don't be in a hurry. I know you have good intentions. They just haven't come to their senses yet. Let me persuade them. My mother-in-law's loud voice rang out. What's there to persuade? I think this heartless woman just wants to cheat us out of our money. What house is worth 20 million yuan? If she really cared about the child, she should just give it to us for free. Why ask for money? Bah, I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen someone this shameless. Give it for free. Who do they think they are? The mistress also thought that my mother-in-law had gone too far. She ignored her words and explained in a low voice, Mom, honey, I just checked. That house is really worth over 20 million yuan now. And it's also a top-tier school district house. If our son moves in, he can go to one middle school in the city. Do you know what that means? As long as a child gets into that school, they're almost guaranteed to enter a 985 or 211 university. That's a prestigious key university. When our son graduates from high school, we can find a real estate agent to put the house on the market and sell it. We can make over 10 million yuan more in an instant. Honey, isn't this much more than the meager salary you earn from working? Once we sell the house, we can retire directly. Then you can buy that Ferrari you like. Mom, you can choose any clothes and skirts you like. When we have time, I can even have another baby for you. My daughter interrupted. They all get something. What about me? The mistress perfunctorily said. Yes, you'll have something too. Don't you like that celebrity group? Once the house is sold, Mom will send you to a concert in South Korea. As long as we have money, we can even get the celebrities to have dinner with you and go shopping with you. My toes curled in embarrassment. When will this habit of feeling awkward for others go away? Buying a Ferrari with 10 million yuan. Having dinner with top boy band celebrities, and having another child. She really knows how to sweet-talk people. The pie she painted is even rounder than the moon. After much persuasion, the mistress finally convinced the three of them and decided to have a detailed discussion in the house tomorrow morning. I frowned and retorted, no need, let's go directly to the real estate bureau to handle the transfer of ownership tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Isn't that too soon? 10 million yuan is not a small amount, and we can't raise that much money so quickly. It will also take some time to get a bank loan. I interrupted forcefully. What do you mean you don't have enough? Your mother-in-law's hometown was demolished last year, and she received a full 9 million yuan, plus the 1 million yuan that your husband got from our divorce. 10 million yuan is exactly the right amount. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then there were the curses of the two women. Samuel, so this is how it is. You didn't tell me about the demolition of your hometown. You and this old hag were conspiring against me, right? What are you arguing about? What does the demolition of my hometown have to do with you, an outsider? As I expected, my ex-husband had indeed hidden the news of the demolition. It has nothing to do with me. I'll beat you to death, you old hag. Bang. Good for you, you little slut. You lowlife, how dare you throw a vase at me? I'll make my son divorce you. The sounds of things being smashed and cursing came one after another. I listened with great interest and regretted not grabbing a handful of sunflower seeds and putting them in my pocket in advance. After the commotion, the phone finally returned to my ex-husband's hand. He softened his tone and said flatteringly, Mila, it's all for the sake of the child. You can't empty out my mother's coffin money all at once. Can you? That's not good for the child either, I said irritably. If it wasn't for the child, who would want to deal with you? My ex-husband forced a smile. Yes, it's all for our daughter. I suppressed my nausea and also softened my tone. I can't do anything about our daughter insisting on following you. Our daughter is used to living in this house. If I wasn't worried that she wouldn't be used to it at your place, I wouldn't be willing to sell it to you. Since you brought our daughter into this, then the day after tomorrow, 1 day is enough for you to raise the money. We'll go and handle the property transfer formalities early the day after tomorrow. Before the other side could reply, I hung up the phone neatly. It's better to postpone it for a day. It just gives me time to pack my luggage and stretch my sore shoulders. I dragged Savannah, who had just finished arranging the supplies, away. My daughter has the key. And there's a chance that my ex-husband's family will move into the house as soon as it's dawn tomorrow. I have to quickly take away all the quilts, cotton-padded jackets, curtains, and everything else that can keep out the cold from home, in case something unexpected happens. In 6 days, when the cold wave hits, if they can find even a piece of cloth or a bite to eat in my house, I'll admit defeat. 7. On the 5th day of the countdown. Unexpectedly, my ex-husband's family didn't move in early. Maybe they were busy raising the money. Great, it gives me more time to cause some damage. I immediately paid extra to hire renovation workers to come over. I had them remove the water heater and air conditioner, and I took away the curtains and carpets. I didn't leave any tiles or floors behind. I took away the toilet, shower, range hood, stove, and kitchen cabinets. I took away everything that could be removed, and I smashed everything that couldn't be taken away. As for my daughter's designer dresses, designer bags, precious jewelry, etc., I contacted a second-hand buyer to come and pick them up and sold them in bulk. I replaced the soft sofa with wooden stools picked up by the roadside, and I took away all the latex mattresses, leaving only the metal bed frames. The main idea is that when the cold wave hits, they won't have anywhere to keep warm. I even smashed the windows and the main door. Of course, I controlled the extent of the damage well. They can't be closed tightly, but they're still usable. At most, there will be a bit of a draft. Although the sofa and the bed are not in good condition, I still left them with some substitutes. At most, they'll have to clean up the garbage. Given my mother-in-law's character, after spending a large sum of money, she definitely won't be willing to spend more money on new ones. The corners of my lips curled slightly. These days, the weather is hot, so a draft isn't a big deal. But after the cold wave arrives, even a gust of fierce wind can be deadly. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. I really went all out to make sure they freeze to death in the cold wave. Finally, I took out the pinhole cameras that I spent a lot of money on at the Computer City and installed them densely in every corner of the room, so that I can easily watch their miserable situation in the future. After finishing all this, I sat cross-legged on the bare cement floor and sighed, alas. I'm still too kind. I even left them with water, electricity, and gas. 8. On the 4th day of the countdown, my ex-husband's family, along with my daughter, appeared in front of the property transfer window at the real estate bureau on time. Although everyone had some injuries on their bodies, they all had joyful smiles on their faces. I curled my lips. They're still having this delusion of making a huge profit with a small investment. Let them dream anyway. They won't be able to dream for much longer. After the money was transferred to my account, the formalities were quickly completed. The mistress deliberately took my daughter's hand and put on an act in front of me. Sister Mila, don't worry, since you've made such a big sacrifice for the child, I will definitely take good care of her. I knew that her so-called don't worry was false, and she was really just trying to provoke me. My daughter reached out to wipe the tears from the corner of her eye and leaned against her, acting coquettishly. Mom, you don't have to lower your head to her for my sake. After saying that, she glared at me. Aren't you going to apologize to my Aunt Wang? You have no sense of propriety at all. No wonder my dad doesn't want you. The mistress straightened her chest and curled the corner of her mouth at me, a gesture that no one else could see. It's still the same old story. It seems that she didn't listen to a single word I said at home before. Is it something to be proud of to be wanted by a man like my ex-husband? Tisk, she's not only stupid but also has a bad memory. Fortunately, the custody rights have been transferred. For some people, having raised them is like having a criminal record. Sigh, I originally wanted to leave some room for them and leave them with some money. Since it's like this, there's no need to show them any mercy. I reached up to brush my hair, secretly rolled my eyes, and then adjusted my expression. I covered my heart and pretended to be sad. I looked just like a weak mother who loved her daughter but was cruelly abandoned and was too choked up to speak. I took out the car keys. Samuel, you know that our daughter is used to riding in luxury cars. I'm afraid she won't be used to riding on your electric scooter. Samuel's face darkened, and he gave my daughter a fierce glare, but my daughter was too busy comforting her mistress mother and didn't notice at all. I pretended to be considerate. This Mercedes-Benz G-Class of mine cost 2 or 3 million yuan when it was bought. I'll sell it to you at half price. For 5 million yuan. Samuel is a vain man who likes to show off. He has always loved luxury cars, and he was tempted. The mistress panicked and tried to stop him, but I added at the right time. But if you don't have the money, it's okay. The electric scooter is also quite good. It suits you very well. Samuel's male pride was completely provoked. Without even bargaining with me, he quickly transferred the money and completed the transfer procedures. It's worth mentioning that Samuel transferred the money to me in 3 installments. One was from his own bank card, one was from his mother's retirement pension card, and the other was from the mistress's dowry card. Using a woman's dowry to make up for a deficit completely, I secretly rejoiced in my heart. Fortunately, I got divorced early. With this move, my ex-husband's family's savings were completely emptied. I watched as their family drove away in my Mercedes-Benz G-Class. On the surface, I looked sad, but in my heart, I was secretly calculating how to spend the 11 5 million yuan that had just been transferred to my account. I've been too tense these few days since I was reborn. I've been busy stockpiling goods and reinforcing the house, and I haven't had a proper meal. Maybe I should ask Savannah to go have a hot pot, go shopping, and then buy a snowmobile later. The more I thought about it, the happier I became. Counting the series of zeros in my bank card balance, I grinned from ear to ear. Thank you, my ex-husband, for the supplies you sent. 9. On the third day of the countdown, the weather was still extremely hot, and it wasn't suitable for storing a large amount of food. With the 10 million yuan sponsored by my ex-husband, I dragged Savannah and swept through the major skincare product counters. We stocked up on all kinds of bottles and jars, such as toner, essence, facial masks, hand masks, hair masks, and we bought them by the pound. At first, Savannah thought I was wasting money and tried to persuade me to spend the money wisely and save it for buying food in the next couple of days, as there would be plenty of places to spend money. But when I showed her the balance of my bank card, she shouted, "Rich bastard," and resolutely joined my shopping spree. Even in the apocalypse, people should live with dignity. We have the means to do so. 10. On the second day of the countdown, it rained last night, and the temperature dropped by 20 degrees. But everyone just thought it was normal plum rain weather and didn't pay any attention. Savannah and I looked at each other, and we could see the deep worry in each other's eyes. I opened my phone and sent a message to all my friends in a group chat, reminding them that the weather was abnormal and that they should try to stockpile more food and warm clothing. Then I turned on airplane mode and didn't reply to any messages asking for more information. I'm just an ordinary person. It takes all my effort to take care of myself in the apocalypse. This is one of the few good deeds I can do. The rest is up to fate. We quickly got into the orphanage's freight truck and split up to start stockpiling the most important resources for survival in the apocalypse: food. To save time, this time we also brought along some of the older children. These days, under Savannah's constant reminders and repeated instructions, although the children were skeptical, they still chose to listen to the director's words, keep the stockpiling a secret, and give us some help within their capabilities. Although the temperature had dropped significantly, the thermometer still showed 12 degrees, so today, we chose to buy some food that didn't require a specific temperature and was easy to store. We bought rice, cooking oil, wheat flour, eggs, seasonings, instant noodles, compressed biscuits, chocolate, self-heating hot pots, potato chips, shrimp crackers, candies, bread, and other instant food products. 11. On the last day of the countdown, it was time to stockpile a large amount of food. The temperature had dropped below zero, and there were some panicked voices on the internet. However, there were more rumors being refuted. The posts refuting the rumors were highly praised by netizens. 9 out of 10 trending topics on the list were something like "So-and-so expert advises everyone to stay calm and not be led astray by rumors." People always tend to believe statements that are beneficial to them, but only I know that the prophecy about the apocalypse is true. We installed snow chains on the freight truck and rushed straight to the frozen food market. We bought pig heads, pork, beef, mutton, seafood, all kinds of fish, as well as frozen semi-finished products, frozen dumplings, frozen steamed buns, and so on. Basically, everything we could see was cleared out. After stocking up on frozen meat, we went to the fresh produce section and loaded all kinds of vegetables and fruits onto our freight truck. We didn't have to worry about buying too much and it going bad. Soon, the earth would become a natural refrigerator. The temperature of -40 degrees was perfect for preserving food. The freight truck refueled more than a dozen times as it went back and forth, and we didn't stop until all the money in Savannah's and my bank cards was used up. We locked the orphanage gate, put on thermal insulation film for the house, and turned on all the heating devices. Savannah and I held a cup of hot milk tea each and hid under the covers, whispering to each other just like when we were children. The children were reading in the small classroom, their voices young and innocent. Outside the window, the wind howled and the rain lashed. But for us, time passed peacefully. 12. When I woke up from my sleep, the air conditioner had already stopped running. I stretched my arm out from under the covers to test the temperature. I let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was a bit cold, but it was still bearable. The window was already frosted over, and I struggled to push it open but couldn't. Savannah brought a bowl of steaming wontons. "You're awake. Have your breakfast. I made the filling this morning. Shepherd's purse and pork." I took it and took a bite. The sweet freshness of the shepherd's purse combined with the rich pork pieces, seasoned with black pepper, and the delicious flavor spread between my lips and teeth. Too busy to talk, I wolfed down the whole bowl, my eyes squinted with happiness. Spending the apocalypse with Savannah, a master chef, is the most correct decision I've ever made in my life. It's so delicious. After a satisfying meal, Savannah went to teach the children in the orphanage, while I turned on my phone that had been turned off for 2 days. Most of the messages were thank you texts from my friends, and there were more than 99 missed calls, all from my daughter. As for why there were no calls from my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law, well, I blocked them the moment I received the money. I dismissed the missed calls and didn't reply to the messages. Instead, I opened the surveillance camera that I had installed in advance. The 5 members of my ex-husband's family arrived in the afternoon 4 days ago. They were all beaming with joy, chatting about which room they would live in and which furnishings in that place should be replaced. Only my daughter was in a bad mood, following behind and arguing loudly. The master bedroom with the balcony is mine. The rose seeds in the garden were specially brought back from Germany by me. Don't dig them up to plant other things. But of course, no one paid attention to her. Among them, the mistress seemed to be the happiest. Let her laugh. Anyway, she won't be able to laugh for long. The house looked the same as before from the outside, but the inside was a whole different story. I opened a pack of tomato-flavored potato chips and watched while eating. They looked around here and there and finally walked through the yard to the front door. There was a big dent in the front door that I had smashed, and the keyhole was already deformed. The key got stuck in it and couldn't be inserted or pulled out. The mistress cursed loudly and quickly urged my ex-husband to call me. He called 8 times in a row, but no one answered. I once again praised my clever decision to block my ex-husband. My daughter watched coldly. She had now realized something was wrong and was no longer as affectionate towards the mistress. After realizing that they couldn't get through to me, the 3 of them cursed again at the door. They called a locksmith, but the locksmith also said there was nothing he could do. So they had to force the door open with brute force. I couldn't help but feel nervous, and I unconsciously speeded up the movement of putting potato chips into my mouth. Here it comes, here it comes. The exciting moment is about to arrive. After opening the door, the 5 of them were stunned by the empty house. The mistress, who was the happiest just now, was now the most shocked. She inspected all the rooms like a madwoman. Then, her legs went weak, and she fainted. My daughter cursed, "Serves you right," and stepped over her. Walking towards her bedroom, I immediately turned down the volume. Then, a scream like a pig being slaughtered came from my daughter's room. My celebrity posters, my life-sized action figures of my idols, my custom-made dresses, designer bags. "Ah, bitch, I'm going to kill you." With red eyes, she frantically dialed my phone. Whether I answered or not, she kept swearing, and her state was no better than that of her fainted mom whine. I didn't feel much sadness about my daughter's reaction anymore. All that was left in my heart was a sense of satisfaction. I was just wondering why I didn't see the figures of my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. I switched the surveillance camera view to the living room. Goodness, the 2 of them were kicking the mistress nonstop. While kicking, they didn't stop scolding either. "It's all your fault for persuading us to buy this lousy house. You said that once we bought it, we'd make a profit. That we'd get rich overnight and retire immediately with this house. Don't you think about it? How could that little bitch Mila be so kind? She hates us so much that she wouldn't let us take advantage of her. TSK, I don't like hearing that. Even though I smashed all the decorations, this house is still worth 20 million yuan. How can this not be considered taking advantage? It's just that money will soon become meaningless." Suddenly, Samuel stopped his actions, and soon after, my ex-mother-in-law also stopped. The 2 of them stepped back together, revealing the mistress curled up on the floor with a pool of blood underneath her. Sigh, did she have a miscarriage? 13. To make matters worse, Ryan, who had been sent out to pick up the moving team, came in with the movers. Ryan's eyes were bloodshot. He pushed the 2 of them away and shouted, "Mom." The 2 of them were immediately flustered. Samuel took the initiative to shift the blame. "Mom, how could you kick your daughter-in-law in the stomach?" My ex-mother-in-law was just about to retort, but when she looked up and saw Ryan's hateful eyes and the movers holding their phones and about to call the police, she chose to remain silent. Seeing this, I was also silent. As a former doting mother, I know exactly what my ex-mother-in-law was thinking. She just wanted to sacrifice herself to protect her son. Samuel thought the matter was settled and secretly let out a sigh of relief. But in the next moment, his heart was in his throat again because my daughter came out of the room. She spoke word by word with a firm tone. "It wasn't Grandma. I saw it." Samuel threatened, "You're just a child. Don't talk nonsense." My daughter ignored him and continued, "Mom fell by herself." Only then did Samuel's heart finally settle down. He used this excuse to send the movers away and bribed Ryan with a game console. As for the mistress lying on the floor, no one even glanced at her from beginning to end. She woke up from the pain by herself and took a taxi to the hospital. She has quite a strong vitality. My heart chilled. I'm all too familiar with the smile on my daughter's face when she testified just now. She would show this expression every time she briefly gave in to me, and then she would bring me even greater harm. She had the same expression when she killed me, in my previous life. I had such a strong mother's filter that I ignored these details. Samuel didn't know anything. He thought my daughter was helping him and patted her on the shoulder, praising her and saying that he had a good daughter. It's hard to comment. I can only say that he should hope for the best. 14. Because the mistress was beaten to the point of having a miscarriage, which scared the movers. They didn't move all their things. They only brought some personal change of clothes. Everyone's attention was on cleaning up the various damaged furniture and appliances in the house. Moreover, it was summer, and the weather was hot, so no one suggested going back to get winter clothes and quilts. My ex-mother-in-law mentioned twice that she wanted to go back to get the kitchen utensils to cook, but Samuel stopped her with the excuse, "Takeout is so convenient now. It's delicious and cheap. You might as well lay a few more bricks instead of wasting this time." Yes, as expected, they didn't buy new furniture. Instead, they bought a bag of cement and planned to lay the broken tiles I left there again, calling it broken style decoration with a good name. The corners of my mouth twitched. This was also an unexpected bonus. I couldn't wait any longer and watched the surveillance footage at 32 times the speed. I couldn't help but want to see how desperate they would be in the cold wave. 15. Sigh. I didn't know until I watched it. What a drama. The mistress was the first to break down. She had just had a miscarriage and was weak, so she couldn't stand the cold. The day before the cold wave fully hit, she insisted that Samuel buy an air conditioner and go back to get thick clothes and blankets. Samuel originally had the idea of going to get the clothes, but he was always lazy and didn't want to do anything by himself. What's more, it was freezing cold, and he would have to wear only shorts and a vest and cross half the city to get the luggage. He had already discussed with his mother and planned to make my daughter and the mistress go, but the mistress's fuss made him lose his temper. In the end, he simply moved a tree stump and sat at the door. He guarded the door and wouldn't let anyone leave, insisting on toughing it out at home. My daughter wrapped herself in a blanket she found somewhere and curled up in the corner of the utility room without saying a word. Oh, it's worth mentioning that the master bedroom that used to be my daughter's was given to Samuel, the study was given to Ryan, and the music room was allocated to my ex-mother-in-law. In fact, there were still several empty guest rooms in the house, but my ex-mother-in-law kept scolding my daughter as a money loser and refused to let her live in them. After much arguing, the original utility room became my daughter's room. My daughter's expression changed from anger to calm, and the frequency of her calls to me gradually decreased. As her biological mother, I know that she's planning something big. Samuel's stubbornness flared up, and he blocked the door for a whole day. He didn't get scared until hailstones the size of goose eggs started falling outside the window. He quickly grabbed the car keys and went out. But he came back dejectedly in less than 10 minutes. He came back and grabbed my daughter's hair, slapping her fiercely. "Bitch, it's bad enough that you let the air out of my tires, but you even poked a hole in the fuel tank. Do you want to kill me?" My daughter tried to defend herself, but Samuel slapped her back. "Do you think the car's dash cam is useless? It recorded everything you did, you fool. Still trying to argue, you little bitch. You're just as low as your mother, that troublemaker. I'll beat you to death." Well, she really did plan something big, but she was also really stupid. She didn't even delete the footage from the dash cam. Samuel wasn't like me. He wouldn't tolerate all her mistakes. My daughter still felt very aggrieved and argued with her neck stuck out. "So what if I poked a hole in it and let the air out? I'm your daughter. How could you hit me?" Samuel sneered. "I'm not as stupid as your mother, who talked nonsense to you all day long. My fist is the law. You're my child. Since you're with me and rely on me, you have to obey my orders." He slapped her one after another. Through the surveillance, I could even see the swelling on the side of my daughter's face. After hitting her, he also snatched away her tattered blanket. My daughter was lying on the floor in a short-sleeved shirt and shorts. I couldn't tell if she was unconscious or awake. It was only then that I could see clearly that her whole face was covered in blood and bruises, with cuts from the corner of her eye to her earlobe. I closed my eyes, unable to bear to look any further. It wasn't that I still had feelings for her, it was out of the pity and respect for life that a normal person should have. 16. With the car damaged, Samuel could only wrap himself in the tattered blanket he had snatched from my daughter, sit on the tree stump, and keep refreshing the ride-hailing app, praying that a kind driver would accept the order. But the weather was really bad. The hailstones the size of goose eggs were no joke. The ride-hailing drivers were just working, not spies. Samuel still refused to add more money. After waiting for 5 hours without getting a ride, he finally realized something. He started calling me and venting his anger at the automated voice response. "TSK, what a frustrated man. Shwala." I opened the second pack of potato chips. They were barbecue flavored. Eating too many made my mouth dry. I'll ask Savannah to make a small pot of pear soup in the afternoon. Samuel kept procrastinating until the snow on the ground was half a person's height and the temperature stabilized below -40 degrees. There was no food or warm clothes at home. I thought they would soon die in the cold wave, but I didn't expect people could be so shameless. 17, at first. He asked the property management of the community and the residents for help and got a few cotton-padded jackets and a small amount of food. But later, as the cold wave raged on, everyone focused on self-preservation and didn't want to provide any more help. Under the threat of survival, Samuel revealed his true nature, relying on his gender advantage. He quickly formed an alliance with his son Ryan, who had just graduated from junior high school. They snatched all the clothes from my daughter and the mistress, except for their underwear. Only my ex-mother-in-law managed to keep her dignity. He and Ryan had the absolute right to use that blanket and the cotton-padded jacket provided by the neighbor. He established the rules for survival in the apocalypse, which stated that my daughter and the mistress had to go out every day and bring back enough food for the whole family before they could have the right to wear clothes. As for my ex-mother-in-law, despite being over 60 years old, she also had to go out. She was responsible for collecting fuel and kitchen utensils and cooking for the family when she got home. He and his son had the absolute right to speak and didn't have to do anything. The women had to serve them like slaves. The three of them disagreed at first, but after being beaten, they agreed. This balance only lasted for a few days. After my daughter and my ex-mother-in-law found that the mistress had frozen to death on the road, they refused to go out no matter what. But the two of them only lasted half a day, in the weather of -40 degrees, without warm clothes. The discomfort was no less than being beaten. They negotiated with Samuel. They would go out, but each of them should be given a cotton-padded jacket. Samuel agreed and then picked the two thinnest jackets and handed them to the two of them. But this time, neither of them came back, after waiting all night without any news. Looking at the drafty villa and the exhausted food, Samuel came up with the same idea as in his previous life, to seize someone else's house and take their place. He first tested the waters in the community group chat and finally selected a family that was often abroad. Just as he was about to go out, he met my daughter who was coming home, but she didn't come back alone. A group of dirty and ragged beggars, carrying sledgehammers, filed into the house. Samuel and Ryan were tied up, stripped of their clothes, and thrown into the yard, where they were left to freeze to death. Originally, they could have died quickly, but this way of death was proposed by my daughter. It was exactly the same as the way I died in my previous life. Even my daughter's expression was just as ferocious and terrifying. The question that had been puzzling me since I was reborn was finally answered. It turned out that there was no such thing as being naturally closer to her father and not liking her mother. It was all just an excuse. In my daughter's world, those who obey her will thrive, and those who oppose her will perish. Remembering the scene before my death in my previous life, I gritted my teeth, and a strong hatred burned in my chest. On the contrary, her father taking her to skip class, going to the amusement park, and eating fried chicken was considered liberating her nature. She thought that I would control her for the rest of my life, while her father would spoil her for the rest of her life. That's why in her previous life, she couldn't wait for me to die so that her father could take care of her, and in this life, the person who opposed her became her father, and she didn't hesitate to kill him. But what she didn't know is that the driftwood that a drowning person clings to may very well drag her into another abyss. As expected, that night, those homeless people established new family rules that were even more extreme than the ones Samuel had made. As the daughter at the bottom of the food chain, her ending was predictable. I thought she would choose to submit, but unexpectedly, at the last moment, she took out a small bottle of gasoline from her pocket, splashed it on all those who tried to get close to her, and then with a bang, she ignited it, creating a scene like a magnificent display of fireworks. The flames burned all around her, but she showed no intention of running away. In my astonished gaze, she took out her phone, which had only 1 bar of battery left, and dialed my number. I neither answered nor hung up the phone, just like I had done countless times before. The call was automatically terminated when the intelligent ringtone rang until the last moment. I no longer had the desire to watch. I turned off my phone, went to the classroom, took a seat in a corner, and listened to Savannah's lecture. A tear fell on the textbook, smudging the pages. It was sour and burning hot. I raised my hand to wipe it away, the crackling fireplace accompanied by the clear sound of reading. This was my future. The dark days of the past cannot be retrieved, and the road ahead will be bright and glorious. 18. No, I take back the word glorious. After I spent 7 consecutive days staying up day and night, binge-watching tragic dramas and crying until my eyes were swollen, Savannah confiscated my phone and sent me to the greenhouse in the backyard to raise chickens and grow vegetables. Woo-woo. Give me back my phone. I want to keep watching the drama. 19. A week later, the vegetable seeds in the greenhouse miraculously sprouted. 2 weeks later, the half-grown chicken chicks we bought laid their first egg, and the little goslings shed their down and grew up smoothly. Don't ask where the ducks went. If you do, The answer is that they were cooked and are now in my stomach. On my birthday, the children in the orphanage made a cake for me with their own hands. They looked up at me and called me Mom, their smiles innocent yet sincere. The empty part in my heart was gradually filled with love and care. Savannah, and I will lead the children to live a good life, waiting for the end of the apocalypse and welcoming the arrival of a new world. Story 2, half a year after the apocalypse. I hid quietly underground like a mouse. Next to me lived my ex and his current partner. Above me resided my father and his new girlfriend. Outside, countless zombies were reveling in chaos, and their supplies were running dangerously low. My father and his girlfriend came knocking. One morning, I was awakened by a knock on the door. Opening it, I saw my father's gloomy face and the woman beside him with her high-arched eyebrows. My father sat on my sofa, furrowing his brows. Brielle, I came to discuss something important with you today. I sighed inwardly, sat opposite him, and braced myself for a lecture. Looking up at me, he said, Brielle, you're an adult now. I've fulfilled my duties as a father. Now, it's time for you to show your filial duty. My emotions were mixed. I had nearly forgotten how long it had been since I last saw him. Over the years, he probably hadn't thought about how long it had been since he last saw me either. He always ignored my existence unless absolutely necessary. Like now, always frowning, as if even a glance was bothersome. I forced a smile. How would you like me to show my filial piety? Perhaps sensing my lack of deference, his expression hardened. Your brother is about to start high school, and I want him to study here. I think you should transfer this apartment to me. I looked around the spacious apartment, about 200 square meters, a gift from my mother when I entered high school and where I had lived since. I chuckled. This place is worth over 10 million. Without a word, the woman sitting next to him, who had been eyeing the apartment greedily, suddenly turned with a look of disbelief. Brielle, your father raised you for 18 years. The bond between a father and daughter is deep as the ocean. Are you really treating this as a transaction with your own father? Did he raise an ingrate? See, this is the art of manipulation by a mistress, stirring a man's fragile nerves with just a few words. As expected, my father erupted in anger, suddenly looking imposing. He stood up abruptly and swung his hand at me, shouting, Have you no conscience? Was raising you all for nothing? I dodged, my movement practiced, for over a decade, except for the first few years when my face was often swollen. In recent years he hardly ever managed to hit me. I laughed. How many years have you called me an ingrate? Why still harbor any illusions about me? Haven't you always said that I'm undutiful? And now you expect me to suddenly become the epitome of filial piety. As my father advanced again, failing to hit me, he was frustrated. I smirked, pulled an electric stun baton from my pocket, and pressed it against his hand. Without a glance at the man who fell in front of me, I smiled sweetly at the stunned woman opposite me, and with precise aim, I pressed the stun baton against her heavily made-up face. The woman, looking incredulous, covered her face, unable to utter a word before collapsing heavily to the ground. Her large, swollen figure hit the floor, almost causing it to shake. I crouched down, looked at her, and felt it wasn't enough satisfaction. Without realizing it, I jabbed the stun gun a few more times into the worn face of Old White Flower, deriving some pleasure as I watched his hefty body convulse repeatedly. Turning to the man beside, I sighed, directing the stun gun at his hand, the same hand that had kept my cheeks persistently swollen for a long time back then. Oh, and then a few more strikes at his ankles, which, back in the day, had kicked my frail body out several times, causing me to crash to the ground and slam into walls like a free-falling projectile. I stood up and glanced one last time at the two people sprawled across my living room floor, the man rough and greasy, the woman baffling me as I rubbed my chin, unable to comprehend how someone with her face caked in makeup like plaster and eyebrows drawn like crayon Shin-chan could have ever bewitched my father so completely. Dragging the unconscious bodies out of my house was no easy task, but once done, I closed the door, collapsed on the sofa, and took a long drink of water. Previously, I only knew how to dodge, never to resist, especially around my father, the only tangible relative I had. I always tolerated him repeatedly. However, once I discovered his true nature, any father-daughter affection was thoroughly severed. Severed it was, and I hadn't forgotten all the beatings from before. Now they dared to torment me again. Why should I endure any longer? My name is Brielle. I take my last name from my mother, which I guess is another reason my father deeply resents me. My mother is a research scientist, often away from home. My father was her college classmate. After graduation, he started working while my mother continued with her graduate studies. They married later, and a year after I was born, around when I was 10, my mother rarely came home. At 12, they divorced, and I stayed with my father. The month they divorced, my father remarried, and his new wife brought along a boy 3 years my junior, suddenly making our household a lively one. The new wife was a master of words, easily provoking my father into beating me with just a few manipulative comments. while my new stepbrother cheered him on from the sidelines. Gradually, through the beatings from my father and the sarcastic taunts from his new wife, I came to understand the reasons for my father's anger, presumably, my mother's infidelity, staying out at nights, and supposedly humiliating him, which emasculated him as a man. Back then, I was naive, believing that my mother had indeed been unfaithful. Feeling guilty and remorseful towards my father and thus quietly enduring their abuse for years, eventually, I began to see things more clearly. Whether my mother had an affair or not, I didn't know. Should I just accept their word as truth? Besides, even if she did, was it my fault? Why should I be their scapegoat? I learned to dodge. Later on, from my father's new wife, I learned how to be eloquent, how to subtly insult, and how to sow discord. From my father's new son, I also learned. I learned to be ruthless, selfish, and to kick others when they were down, until 3 years ago, when my mother finally appeared. She was exhausted but embraced me, thorns and all, crying her heart out. Her tears washed away my resistance, turned my sorrow into tears, and softened my bitterness. She stayed with me for a month, leaving me this house and a bank card. She gave me much advice before reluctantly leaving. She went back to work. She hadn't had an affair. She had been engaged in scientific research in a secret lab, which often kept her from coming home. It was my father who had the affair. No wonder he seemed closer to his new son than to his own. That boy was his biological child. No wonder that family of 3 seemed so harmoniously happy. They truly were a family. I managed to keep a low profile during my 3 years of high school and got into a local university. I decided I wanted nothing to do with that family anymore, unexpectedly. Just half a year later, they showed up at my door, with a sigh. Although I managed to send them away, I knew they would disturb my peace again. I needed to think of a solution. 2. I have a secret base. As I was pondering how to escape from my worthless father and his mistress, my phone suddenly rang with a sharp, jarring tone I had set specifically for my mother. Frantically, I checked it. It was a message with just one word: run. My heart sank. Over these 3 years, I had rarely heard from my mother. When I did, it was just a brief greeting to check if I was all right and to let me know she was still alive and thinking of me. Staring at the message, I curled up tightly. When my mother left, she had quietly handed me a note. It read, "Brielle, go to your grandmother's place, stock up on food and water. When I tell you to hide, do it immediately. Don't trust anyone." The lab she worked in conducted highly dangerous experiments that could lead to catastrophic consequences. The last message you receive from me will be when I am about to leave this world. Don't be scared or sad. Just run. Mom loves you. Remember these words, then burn this note. I slowly got up, went to the bedroom, and pulled a backpack from the safe in the walk-in closet. I put it on, went to the living room, cut off the water, electricity, and gas, and left the house. Looking back at the sturdy blast door and then at the couple slowly stirring to rise, I felt no attachment and walked away. As usual, I slung the backpack to my front and rode my bike swiftly towards the school. Back in my dorm, I changed clothes, grabbed a different backpack, and headed out again. This time, after taking the back door and switching to an electric bicycle, I left the house. My grandmother's house was located in the northwest corner of the city. The year my mother divorced was the same year my grandmother passed away, or rather, it was after my grandmother's death that my mother got divorced. As for my grandfather, he had left us even earlier. It is said that during my mother's high school years, he became romantically involved with a female colleague. Unfortunately, while they were out, they were struck by a dump truck in a tragic accident. It seems both my mother and grandmother had a tendency to fall for the wrong men. This suddenly brings to mind my boyfriend Zachary, that gentle and handsome boy. Could he possibly be another wrong choice? I worry that I might have inherited this unfortunate trait from my mother and grandmother. Could I too end up with someone unworthy? Shaking off these thoughts, I look at the villa's gate right in front of me. I hop off the electric bike, punch in the code, enter, and close the door behind me. I carelessly leave the bike at the entrance and run into the lobby, collapsing onto the sofa with a long sigh of relief. From now on, it's just me. Tears start to fall. Looking at the dark and cloudy sky outside, I miss my mother. I've been listless all day, picking up my phone and scoffing at it. My father and his wife have bombarded me with countless calls and messages. My father mostly scolded me, calling me an ingrate, while his wife cursed me with all sorts of ill wishes. Looking around, I scoff again, thinking that those ill fates will definitely not be mine. My grandmother's house was in a villa complex that was abandoned many years ago. The northwest corner of our city is home to a continuous range of mountains with beautiful scenery. Back then, there was a boom in tourism development, and many city dwellers liked to visit the mountains in the suburbs. This villa complex was developed with the intention of selling to the wealthy. Initially, only about 22-story Western-style buildings were constructed. They were built but never decorated. As the funding was cut off, due to some reports, construction was halted, and over the years, it has been left in this abandoned state. My grandmother really liked this place and bought the villa furthest inside. After it became abandoned, she didn't mind. She hired a construction team, finished the interior, installed water and electricity systems, set up solar power, dug a deep well, and even fenced in a sizable yard to raise some chickens and ducks, living a pastoral life. After my grandmother passed away, the villa was left deserted until I took over 3 years ago. I reinforced the surrounding walls and changed the locks. All the windows were replaced with bulletproof glass. All doors were upgraded to security doors. Privacy films were added. Thick curtains were installed. Most importantly, I discovered that the basements here were hidden gems. This place has 2 basements. It's normal for a villa to have a basement. This place is no exception. Featuring not just a basement, but a 2-level basement designed with the same functionality as the villa above ground during my grandmother's renovation. In other words, the basement includes a storage room, a study, a bedroom, a lounge, and even a guest room, but there is nothing unusual about it. My grandmother was wealthy and had the freedom to design the basement as elaborately as she desired without interference from anyone. However, 3 years ago, upon my mother's advice, I discovered a secret about the basement. I found a booklet filled with my childhood doodles in my grandmother's bedside drawer, and through a unique set of symbols that my grandmother and I used to communicate, I uncovered the basement's secret. One day, I found an entrance to a passage leading to the back mountain in the basement's card room, and in the pitch-dark passage, I located the 69th stone slightly protruding, which was the switch to another basement entrance. This basement is vast. It's almost as if it hollows out half the mountain, connecting to the yard next to the villa's basement. Essentially, this basement is right next to the villa's basement, separated only by a wall. There's water here, drawn from mountain springs, not much, trickling into a large stone basin, and when the basin overflows, it pours into a pool, eventually forming a small stream that seeps outside through a specially designed gap in the wall and floor. There's electricity here. Not from the solar panels on the villa's roof, but from the solar panels on a lookout tower at the top of the mountain. There is a ventilation system and a heating system. There's a surveillance system that allows viewing both inside and outside the villa, as well as up and down the mountain. There's a kitchen, fully equipped with various pots, pans, and utensils, including electric and gas stoves, and even a wood stove. Next to the kitchen, there's a storage room filled with numerous gas cylinders and neatly stacked drywood. There's a large cold storage room. There's a study with shelves full of books. There's a leisure area with a computer, a laptop, a projector, and many movies and TV shows stored on the computer. There's even gym equipment. There's also a toilet, which I examined to find it is a composting toilet. A well-maintained eco-friendly dry toilet that could serve me alone for over a decade without needing maintenance. There's a bedroom with an elegant round bed, with bed curtains hanging from the ceiling, cascading beautiful white gauze completely enveloping the bed, creating an utterly dreamy atmosphere. Surrounding the bedroom are white wardrobes, half empty, half filled with vacuum-packed bedding. Clearly, this was prepared for me. I wandered around this underground basement, or rather, the underground castle my grandmother left for me, shocked and terrified. I was shocked that my grandmother had quietly constructed such a massive project. I was terrified by the kind of unknown disaster that made my grandmother go to great lengths to prepare such an underground castle for me. It took me 3 years to fill the underground castle. 3. My boyfriend brought a small white flower. When I saw Zachary appear at the villa door through the camera, my heart sank. My mother warned me not to trust anyone. So I went through all 3 years of high school without a single friend, wandering alone every day, like an invisible person. Zachary transferred to our class in our second year of high school, and the teacher seated him next to me. He was a handsome and gentle man who approached me quietly and without fanfare. Often, I wondered, can a high school student really be so calculating? Can't a high schooler just have a simple crush or naive love? But then I looked at myself. Pretty, not really. You might say I had the charm of youth, but I wasn't charming. I was someone who dozed off in class, napped after class, disappeared after school, and barely spoke in front of my classmates. How could anyone find that endearing? If even one boy liked me, I would suspect he must have very unique tastes, someone who appreciates those who march to the beat of their own drum. Zachary was persistent. For over half a year, despite my cold and uninviting demeanor, he remained gentle and patient. But suddenly, I ran out of patience. Who cares if he had ulterior motives? I had to give it a try. So, one day after class, when he once again handed me a pink thermos, I didn't ignore it. Instead, I looked up, smiled, and took it from him. At that moment, I finally saw a crack in his consistently gentle facade. Is this what love is? A cup of water every day, a small biscuit, an occasional smile. Oh. And after finding out I had a mobile phone, a message every day, through the camera, I finally looked directly at Zachary's face. At that moment, his face was filled with unmistakable panic. He rang the doorbell, heard no sound, then gently knocked on the door for a while. Getting no response, he started calling out my name through the camera on the doorbell. "Brielle, are you there? Can you open the door?" "Please," I didn't respond. I was busy recalling when I had slipped up and let him know about this villa's existence. I had been very careful. Besides my father, no one knew I had a grandmother, let alone that she left behind this villa. Moreover, even my father only knew of my grandmother's villa as an unfinished project. He didn't even know that she had finished decorating it and lived here for several years. His relationship with my mother had been so bad that he hadn't seen his former mother-in-law in many years, Zachary, whom I had only dated a couple of times and barely spoken to seriously. How did he find out? "Brielle, you haven't been to school for days, and I've been looking everywhere for you. Your parents also came to school looking for you a few times. I found out from them that you have another home in these mountains. Brielle, do you know it's chaos outside? When Serena and I came looking for you, we saw people biting each other. Normal people suddenly turned into cannibalistic monsters, bloody and violent. Anyone bitten would turn into a monster too. Many people suddenly became like zombies from the movies. Brielle, Serena and I barely managed to escape. We can't go back to school, and we dare not return home, so we had no choice but to come looking for you. Will you open the door and let us in?" I let him improvise outside the door for half an hour, until he was completely exhausted, and little Serena beside him was on the verge of tears. When I opened the door, Zachary and his little Serena seemed stunned. They probably didn't expect that I would let them in, or maybe they thought that even if I did agree, I would drive a hard bargain or make things difficult for them. They exchanged a quick glance and squeezed through the partially open door, then leaned back against it, panting heavily after they quickly shut it behind them. Outside, there were roars. I sighed. It had only been a week, and even in my desolate, unfinished apartment complex, zombies had appeared, a testament to how swiftly the virus had spread. Just as they had caught their breath, the roars from outside startled them into a panic, and they hurried deeper into the house. I was sitting on the living room sofa, watching them scramble in, and then lock the living room door in a frightened hurry. Feeling somewhat irritable, upstairs, I had stored quite a bit of food. The storeroom was filled with rice, millet, various grains, and long-lasting vegetables like potatoes and onions. The freezer held chicken, fish, meat, eggs, and various dried goods. If it were just me, I could last a year. With 3 people, maybe we could manage for half a year. I wasn't sure. Little Serena naturally took on the role of the cook. Zachary occasionally cleaned up the floor, tidied up, and when bored, followed Serena around, helping her prepare the food. As for me, I ended up being treated like a princess, meticulously cared for by the 2 of them. If it weren't for the occasional roars outside, there was almost a sense of peaceful, good times. However, trouble was bound to arise. As I was growing a bit impatient waiting for the next issue to emerge, 3 unexpected people appeared outside the villa. It was my father and his family. I was genuinely curious about how these 3 had managed to avoid the hordes of zombies and make it to my place. Although in the past few days, the terrifying roars of zombies outside the villa had been rare, I still knew from the barely functioning internet that the outside, especially densely populated urban areas, was almost hellish. The streets were filled with zombies, wandering aimlessly, tearing apart anyone who appeared. No, even cats, dogs, or rats would become their prey, swarming and shredding them. Outside, my father was sobbing bitterly. "Brielle, it's Dad. Please open the door. It's chaos out here," and I had no choice but to come to you. For the first time, through the camera, I saw my father showing an expression other than anger and irritability. The drama queen started her performance again, crying earnestly, "Brielle, don't blame your dad. It's all my fault. Do whatever you want to me. Just save your dad, save your brother, let them in." Then I looked at my so-called brother, a 15-year-old boy, tall and well-built enough to pick me up, throw me to the ground, and trample over me. I remained silent. Zachary seemed about to say something but then shut his mouth, while little Serena couldn't help herself. "Let them in, maybe." I glanced at her and ignored her. I continued watching my father's dramatic plea. "Brielle, I neglected you before, and I am sorry for that. Forgive your dad. I won't go inside. Let your brother and aunt go in and save them." What a deeply touching and emotional scene he created. On the side, little Serena's eyes brimmed with tears. "Sis, let them in. Outside is like hell on earth. Zachary and I barely made it out alive. We know what it's like out there. Even if they're not your parents, they are still people. Saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-tier pagoda. Let them in." I turned to her with a sneer. "The food we have could last one person a year." 3 people half a year, add 3 more. How long do you think it will last? She choked on her words, trying to muster a response. Maybe this disaster will pass soon. We have to have faith in the government. Her voice grew more resolute. Besides, I think, even if it means dying together, we can't abandon our parents. I laughed and glanced at Zachary. Do you think so too? Zachary hesitated before trying to persuade me. Brielle, they are your parents after all, as their children. I cut him off with a cold laugh. Fine, since you two are so saintly, let them in, but you're responsible for them, whether it's food, drink, or anything else. I paused, then snorted dismissively, or whatever else. I refused to let them stay on the second floor. The first floor had 3 bedrooms. Serena occupied one, my father and the old woman took another, and my chubby brother took the last. Zachary, having no choice, ended up sleeping on the living room sofa. Whether he sneaked into Serena's bedroom at night, I wouldn't know. My father's family arrived in an SUV. I'm not sure where they got it from. Given my father's financial situation, affording such a car must have been a struggle. The SUV was cool and fast, suitable for mountain roads, but its only flaw was being noisy. Their journey here attracted quite a few zombies. Moreover, the old woman's shrill cries drew some zombies right to us. In the split second before the zombies terrified them completely, I let them in, shaken as they were. They clearly didn't expect 2 strangers to be in my place. I leaned over the second floor railing, observing them, particularly the old woman with her wet pants, her face flushed red with embarrassment as she sat on the floor covering her face and crying. It was probably best she covered her face. It was a sight no one could bear to look at, makeup smeared, streaked with black and white, washed over by tears, and smudged by her hands, like a child's messy drawing. My father looked a bit embarrassed and opened his mouth to say something, but I ignored him and turned to Zachary. I'll leave them to you. I knew the old woman and Serena would end up fighting, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. That very night, they clashed. In the fight, it seemed like the old woman completely overpowered Serena, pinning her down and fiercely slapping her face several times, even pulling out a handful of Serena's long black hair. However, despite the old woman's fierce and intimidating appearance, she didn't gain much of an advantage before 3 men, moved by pity, pulled her away and threw her aside. Zachary even couldn't help but embrace Serena in his arms. My dad, a middle-aged man who had just escaped from the jaws of zombies outside with a full stomach, watched as Zachary embraced a tearful little Serena. He stood there with his hands slightly open, looking rather lost and disheartened. My foolish younger brother, on the other hand, was more straightforward. He ran over to little Serena and asked innocently, "Sister Serena, are you all right?" From upstairs, I watched all this emotionlessly. No one questioned why old Mrs. White had fought with little Serena, nor did anyone comfort the middle-aged woman whom Serena had accidentally scalded. Everyone simply pitied the beautiful girl trembling in Zachary's embrace. Old Mrs. White forgot to cry. She sat paralyzed on the ground, staring blankly at her husband and then at her chubby son, overwhelmed with anger, frustration, and despair. I was somewhat amazed to see such a range of emotions on her devastated face. Quite a spectacle. The second altercation between old Mrs. White and little Serena occurred 3 days later. This time, the conflict arose because little Serena was too wasteful while cooking. She had peeled off too much skin from several plump potatoes. Old Mrs. White scolded her, and Serena timidly replied, "I really can't cook. Maybe you should do it." Old Mrs. White snorted, "Wishful thinking. Is this your house? You eat and drink at my expense, and yet you want to do nothing. Dream on." Serena, visibly angry, retorted, "Is this your house? How shameless can you be? This is Brielle's house. You're just a stepmother." Perhaps the term stepmother struck a nerve. Old Mrs. White had been avoiding me these past few days, probably struggling with the psychological barrier of having once been haughty in front of me to now depending on me for survival. Now, like an abscess pricked open, Serena's words hit her where it hurt most, and she snapped. Once a middle-aged woman snaps, she can be very destructive. Old Mrs. White swung a rolling pin straight at Serena's face. Serena dodged, but the blow grazed her ear and struck her shoulder, followed by a flurry of savage hits. When 3 men rushed into the kitchen, old Mrs. White was on top of Serena, frantically tearing at the face Serena was desperately trying to protect with her hands. By the time the men managed to pull old Mrs. White off Serena, she had already thrown herself into Zachary's arms, crying inconsolably. My father, infuriated, yelled at his wife, "Are you sick? Why bully the girl?" Old Mrs. White, holding a clump of black hair in her hand, chuckled coldly, "Because I can. Are you blind? She has a man. Do you want her to be your mistress? Take a good look at yourself." Her husband's slap cut off her cold laughter. I had to admire old Mrs. White's fighting spirit. It was truly remarkable. Just after she had pinned down Serena to beat her, she was slapped to the ground by her husband but immediately picked up the rolling pin she had discarded as a nuisance and swung it hard at him. My father must have been stunned, probably never imagining that the woman who had been tender to him all these years could suddenly become so violent. Everyone was shocked. Zachary, holding Serena, forgot to comfort her and just stared blankly at the scene of a woman beating a man. My chubby younger brother was also stunned, watching his mother assault his father. I guess he must have been torn about which side to take. My father finally snapped out of his pain and struggled to retaliate. But old Mrs. White, quick to react, jumped beside her son, using the rolling pin for defense while swiftly taking cover behind him. Yet another spectacle. Zachary, furious, demanded a negotiation. 5 people faced off. Serena nestled in Zachary's arms, and he patted her shoulder to soothe her, then turned to the trio opposite. We kindly let you in, provided food and shelter, not for you to harm others. Righteous and imposing, old Bai Hua sneered coldly. You, what do you think you are? Is your name, or this little wretch's name, on the property deed of this house? It's Brielle, right? And who is Brielle? She's my husband's daughter, part of our family. She pointed a finger accusingly at Zachary. You're Brielle's boyfriend, aren't you? Was it Brielle who took you in? And now you're here, cuddling some little wretch in Brielle's house, pretending to be some innocent young man. Do you have no shame? Wow. I watched from upstairs with great interest. Zachary's face stiffened. And the awkward moment when he instinctively pushed little Serena away almost made me laugh out loud. Look at old Bai Hua's fighting spirit, her clear-headedness, her sharp words. I can completely understand now why my father, who thinks he's so superior and manly, has been unable to stand up to her over the years. The expression on Zachary's face was priceless, utter embarrassment mixed with annoyance. Of course, he was annoyed. If he had been caught red-handed, there wouldn't be much to say. But he was merely caught in a fishy situation before he could even take a bite. How could he not be angry when his ambiguous situation was pointed out so blatantly? He trembled with anger. You shouldn't make baseless accusations. There's nothing going on between me and Serena. She has a boyfriend. I just can't stand seeing you bully people. Then, looking up at me, he adjusted his expression to appear very sincere. Brielle, don't listen to her nonsense. Serena is my senior. 5. Hard power decides direction. For the first time in my life, I experienced what it's like to be the center of attention. For 3 whole days, every mealtime old Bai Hua would shout, "Daughter, what would you like to eat? Let your boyfriend's little wretch of a senior sister cook it for you." And that little Serena, though not really following her orders, would often quietly bring me some delicately prepared snacks after meals. Like a piece of sakama or some cookies, I laughed. These were all my stash treats, and now she was using them to curry favor with me. Compared to old Bai Hua, little Serena had an even thicker skin. Life seemed to have returned to normal, although there were 3 more people, increasing the consumption of food significantly. Having more people also meant more courage. My father even found the leisure to urge his chubby son to study. The kid was uncooperative, impatiently saying he didn't even bring his textbooks, so what was there to study? This sparked a playful chase between father and son. Little Serena also stopped provoking old Bai Hua. Like a poor little cabbage, she stayed in the kitchen obediently preparing 3 meals a day, enduring old Bai Hua's constant nitpicking. I rested my chin on my hand and pondered, had these people ever thought about what they would do when the food ran out? What exactly was little Serena's purpose in bringing this family of 3 into the house? And now, what is she trying to achieve by inadvertently provoking the 2 men and 1 boy in the house? Is it merely for attention? When will the next battle between the 2 women begin? When will I lose my current queen-like status? The turning point in the situation was just a chicken leg. Right now, the 6 of us were divided into 3 groups, the family of 3, Zachary and little Serena, and of course, although Zachary seemed to be on my side, everyone clearly knew where his heart lay. Then there was me, seemingly lofty yet actually in a precarious position. That noon, after little Serena brought me half a bowl of rice, a chicken leg, and some pickled vegetables upstairs, the 5 of them sat down in the dining room downstairs for the day's first meal. This was a rule set by old Bai Hua the afternoon before. To conserve food, we've decided to skip breakfast starting today, eat a more substantial lunch, and only have some porridge in the evening. Unexpectedly, the first meal already led to a fight. After a roasted chicken and a drumstick were served to me, my chubby brother quickly grabbed and started gnawing at the remaining drumsticks. Zachary frowned but held back from saying anything. Everyone sped up their eating. Knowing my brother never likes to miss out during meals, not even finished with his drumstick, he reached out for a chicken wing and started eating it with great delight. This time, Zachary couldn't hold back. "Can you consider others when eating? We're all in this together. We should share the hardships." He hadn't even finished speaking when old Mrs. White interrupted him. "People living under others' roofs sure have thick skins." Eating and drinking at someone else's expense and still acting righteous. Have some shame, will you? Her words made Zachary's face alternate between red and white. I almost applauded. Old Mrs. White really hit where it hurt. Little Serena started playing the innocent again. Why would you say that? We are Brielle's friends, and you are her family. We're almost like one family now. Old Mrs. White, who couldn't stand Serena's facade, snapped back even harsher. Oh, please. I've seen thick-skinned, but never this thick. Who considers you family? Zachary is barely Brielle's boyfriend. What are you, a hanger-on, always flirting with men? You think I don't see your true colors? What's with the innocent act? I covered my mouth as Serena turned pale and trembled, looking at Zachary, who was furious. He pointed at old Mrs. White and roared, "Don't push people too far. What do you think you are? Everyone knows Brielle's parents divorced because of you. Do you think Brielle really considers you family? She can barely stand you. If it wasn't for Serena pleading with Brielle, do you think you'd even be here?" Old Mrs. White lost it, slamming a plate on Zachary's head. My chubby brother, seeing his mom act, finished his chicken wing and sat down on the dazed Zachary, his hefty body flattening him instantly. The scene descended into chaos. Serena snapped out of it and tried to pull my brother off, but the moment she touched him with her gentle hand, he seemed embarrassed and almost got up. However, old Mrs. White, seeing Serena trying to seduce her son, was furious and lunged at her. This time, Zachary and Serena were utterly defeated. Zachary was sat on by the hefty boy for half an hour, nearly suffocating, and a large bump quickly formed where the plate had hit his head, making him look like a crooked neck gourd. Serena's hair was pulled out in clumps. Besides fiercely protecting her face, she was probably hit countless times. Old Mrs. White really went all out, and when my father tried to pull her away, she threw him aside. Thus, the control of the household shifted into old Mrs. White's hands, truly formidable. Unfortunately, the quality of my meals has dropped. No more chicken legs for me. 3 days later, old Mrs. White suggested we eat only one meal a day, aside from my chubby brother. No one objected. These days, the howling outside has become clearer and more terrifying. Several times I saw my father pacing in the living room in the middle of the night. Even old Mrs. White, usually picking on Serena, didn't bother to intervene, only occasionally looking out the window, but the courtyard wall blocked the view. Zachary has also become somewhat sluggish, almost unresponsive to old Mrs. White's sarcasm. The only one seemingly unaffected is my chubby brother, constantly complaining about being hungry, with no signal on the TV or cell phone. There are no more announcements urging people to stay indoors and wait for rescue. We know nothing about the outside world, and there is no hope for society to return to normal anytime soon. Being cut off from the world is no longer a retreat from the noise but a source of loneliness, fear, and even despair. Everyone is anxious. I know time is running out. In this atmosphere of hopelessness, people's sense of security and rationality are gradually eroding. It's like we're on a deserted island with no social norms to restrain us, and fear begins to reveal the darker side of human nature. In fact, I've noticed old Baihua has been secretly moving kitchen supplies to her bedroom, and that little white flower has snatched handfuls of candies from the storage cabinet and stuffed them in her pockets a few times. Look, often women think faster than men, instinctively knowing what's most important. Unfortunately, physical strength is a natural weakness. So often they have to submit to men. Thus, in the most recent fierce conflict, women were the spark and men the victors. Usually, conflicts among women are subtle competitions, but in today's abnormal state, little Serena no longer plays her innocent role because there's no audience, no one to empathize with her. Old Baihua definitely ignores her. She's a completely tactless person, especially hostile towards little Serena, almost always ready to scold her upon meeting, under normal circumstances. If Serena acted like she was wronged, men would stand up for her, Zachary would be indignant, my father would adopt a senior's stance to reprimand old Baihua, and even my chubby brother would comfort Serena like a loyal dog. But now, no matter how harshly old Baihua scolds, no one intervenes. Zachary looks bewildered, my father just frowns deeply, and my chubby brother is busy eating the candy old Baihua snatched from Serena. So, when the two women fought over a sausage again, the men barely reacted, perhaps moved by Serena's distressing cries. My father finally intervened. He stood up, grabbed old Baihua, and threw her aside, standing tall and ominously looking at Zachary, who had just helped Serena up, and grunted, "Keep her in check," pointing at Serena. Seeing Zachary open his mouth as if to speak, he sternly said, "I can't even eat my fill, and you still want to stay here. Don't provoke me." Then, looking at the trembling Serena, he sneered, "I'm not interested in women when I'm hungry, so don't annoy me with your flirtation." Old Baihua, thrown aside, suddenly started laughing creepily and eerily, but she was quickly silenced by a stern look from my father. "Everyone calm down. It really is true that raw power decides everything. The strength of middle-aged men should not be underestimated. No matter how greasy or rough, when it counts, a man who's been hungry and harassed by old Baihua for days suddenly stands tall and strong again. Since my father became the de facto leader of our home and its inhabitants, the quality of my meals has severely declined. Under his stern gaze, I willingly gave up the second floor, watching as he moved into my bedroom with old Baihua. And even my chubby brother moved to a nearby guest room, old Baihua, triumphantly wearing my clothes, twirled in front of little Serena and hoarded all the kitchen's rice, flour, oil, potatoes, onions, and other food in the upstairs bedroom. I was sitting on the living room sofa, casting a cool gaze at old Mrs. Bai's figure. I thought to myself, it's probably best if middle-aged women avoided dressing like young girls. The jeans were so tight that her hips and excess flesh seemed to burst at the seams, and the layers of belly fat were clearly visible beneath her soft tunic. Not wanting to inflict further damage on my eyes, I turned to look at little Serena, only to find her eyes shimmering like spring water. Filled with regret and pity, I raised an eyebrow and said, "Haven't you looked in the mirror these past few days? Your clothes are covered in dirt, there are streaks of tears and dust on your face, and what's that?" I frowned. "At the corner of your mouth. Did you drool just now?" Her face was actually quite clean. And it's not like we had any interruptions in water or electricity supply, but probably because she had been so caught up playing with Mrs. By these past few days, and without spare clothes to change into, she really hadn't been taking care of her appearance as she used to. My words seemed to have struck a chord. As she suddenly looked guilty, I saw Serena's expression stiffen as she quickly covered her face with her hands, subtly rubbing her cheeks without making a sound. I glanced at Zachary, who sat rigidly to one side, and couldn't help but sneer. Serena was probably too used to playing the roles of the innocent and the saint, not realizing what the situation called for. Zachary was nearly unresponsive, completely untouched by her act. Couldn't she see that? Yet her desire to perform was still so strong, being forced to eat downstairs with a group, and only allowed a bowl of watery porridge so thin you could see a reflection in it. I felt I couldn't stand it anymore. Not wanting to sleep in the bedroom that my father and Mrs. Bai had used, I had no choice but to curl up with my blanket on the sofa across from Zachary to rest. The night was deep and silent. Occasionally, a few horse shouts pierced the quiet, reminding everyone of the chaos in the world. I lay there with my eyes closed, unable to sleep. I'm not sure when I drifted off, but I suddenly heard Zachary's hoarse voice. "Brielle, I'm sorry." I barely moved my lips. "What are you sorry for?" Zachary was silent for a moment before replying. "I shouldn't have brought your senior sister to find you, nor should I have let your father and the others in." I remained still, continuing to probe. "Why did you come close to me?" Zachary sighed. "Initially, it was out of curiosity. You were so different from your classmates, always solemn, silent, and you left immediately after school." He paused, then softly continued, "One day, driven by curiosity, I followed you after school to see what you were up to." My heart tightened as I listened to him continue. "You were riding your electric scooter, taking turns and moving quickly, but then you suddenly stopped next to a trash can. A dirty little mongrel was rummaging through the garbage there. You watched for a while, then took a paper bag out of your backpack, wrapped the little dog in it, and took it home in the basket of your scooter." I was silent. That was when I met Jojo. Back then, I was constantly wandering and afraid, often waking up in the middle of the night, occasionally clutching my phone in a daze, always doubting whether my mom had really come back, whether the notes she left were imagined by me, what I should be preparing for, what exactly my mom was afraid of, and what I would do if one day I did receive news from her. I felt like a lone soul in this world, unable to trust anyone around me, almost swallowed by fear and loneliness. That day, I was aimlessly riding around until I saw little Jojo, a dirty, skinny mongrel, and I felt, at last, I had found a companion. As he spoke more, Zachary's words flowed more smoothly. "That's when I realized, you weren't just indifferent, you were also a sweet girl." Zachary's voice was soft and gentle. In the darkness, I could even sense his indulgent smile. "I want to get closer to you, but unfortunately, you remain indifferent as always, ignoring my advances." Not wanting to hear his declaration of affection any longer, I sat up and interrupted him. "There's a basement here." He paused, confused. "What?" I continued. "There's a basement here, and it has some food and supplies. Come with me. Once we're inside and lock the door, they won't be able to get in." Zachary froze. I stood up and headed towards the utility room beneath the stairs, where the entrance to the basement was located. Zachary also got up and followed me into the utility room. The room was very dark, and the utility room was even darker, pitch black. I fumbled around, moving a vacuum cleaner and other miscellaneous items blocking the small door to the basement. Finally, I found a latch, lifted it with a click, and pulled open the door, which was only wide enough for one person to enter. I went in first and looked back at Zachary in the darkness. "Come on." After a moment, Zachary seemed to come to his senses and rustled his way over. I had already made my way down the stairs to the basement level and waited for him to descend, unable to see. I listened carefully, only to realize he had only descended a few steps before stopping. Then I heard his nervous voice. Brielle, my senior sister. I smirked silently, then sighed. You go call her then. I'll wait for you at the entrance. Brielle, I really can't leave her alone upstairs, you know, your stepmother. I grew impatient and cut him off. This door, once it's locked from the inside, can't be opened from the outside. I'll wait here, and if you alert anyone else, I'll just close it, and no one else will be able to come in. Okay, he agreed quickly and hurried back up. I hadn't waited even a minute before I heard rustling sounds again. Zachary came down first, followed by little Serena. However, there was a bit of an accident when Serena came down. She probably accidentally knocked over the vacuum cleaner, which wasn't small, and the noise it made, along with her scream, was quite loud. Almost at the same time, I heard the sound of a door opening upstairs, and my father running downstairs asking what happened. I quickly climbed up, kicked Serena, who was blocking the stairs, back down, swiftly reached out to close the door, not caring that the loud sound of the door might attract my father, locked the latch, and groped to pull another small door over to secure it. Now, with double doors, even an axe from above wouldn't be a problem. With a snap, I hit the switch on the left wall of the staircase, and the basement was instantly as bright as daylight. Serena, sprawled on the ground, covered her eyes, while Zachary silently comforted her beside her. I sat on the stairs, looking at them, Zachary, feeling my gaze, awkwardly withdrew his hand from Serena's head and smiled at me. She didn't mean to, I scoffed. Stop with the fake crying now. Should I send you back up there? Serena suddenly stopped, slowly raised her head with tears streaming down her face. Brielle, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I wasn't careful. A kick from you is nothing. I deserve a beating. I was truly out of patience. Are you going to die if you stop acting? Can you not survive without causing a scene? I stood up and headed to my room, no longer wanting to witness their drama. I had thought those who approached me would be cunning and strategic, but instead, I'm stuck with these two. Does this mean my mother wasn't such an important figure in that lab either? Could it be that she wasn't necessarily doomed? But then again, could her lack of importance make her an easy target for sacrifice? I closed my bedroom door, shutting out the noise of my father and Old White's quarrel upstairs, as well as the anxious and guilty performance of the couple outside. I needed some peace. Fortunately, I was free from that family of three for a moment, enjoying some quiet time. 7. A game of hidden agendas. Amidst the daily banging on the doors by my father and the scolding from Old White calling her little slut, worn-out shoe, heartless bastard, and more, Serena took a thorough look at the basement. Zachary seemed unusually excited these days. He was deeply agitated by Old White's harsh words, challenging his self-esteem like never before. Being a young adult, it was time for him to assert his masculinity, but living under someone else's roof, he was mocked daily and couldn't talk back. Now free from Old White's torment and after having a heartfelt conversation with me the previous night, he seemed much more at ease. After a comfortable bath, he exercised in the activity room and then, in high spirits, joined Serena in the kitchen to cook. Serena seemed like a dry flower rejuvenated by rain, blooming with vitality. Even though her clothes were still damp from washing, she gleamed with energy, cheerfully using up my kitchen supplies. Unfortunately, the supplies stored in the basement were limited: a bag of rice and a 10-pound bag of flour, without enough oil, salt, soy sauce, or vinegar to truly showcase Serena's culinary skills. After all, fresh vegetables, fruits, and meats were upstairs. Although the basement was spacious, it mainly stored instant noodles, hot and sour powders, rice noodles, and easily storable vegetables like onions and potatoes. That night, I enjoyed a box of hot and sour powder immensely. Serena finally gave up on the kitchen, seeing how much I enjoyed my meal, and hesitantly prepared a box for herself. Zachary, unfamiliar with the taste of hot and sour powder, opted for instant noodles instead. This marked our 7th day in the basement since our escape, and nearly a month since the world turned chaotic. I had stayed alone at my grandmother's for 3 days before Zachary and Serena joined me for a week. Then my father's family arrived, causing chaos for another dozen days. When living upstairs, I could peek through the gaps in the curtains on the second floor to see what was happening outside. Although we were in a remote area with limited visibility, I could at least see whether the groups of people, or the ghostly creatures that came with them, were still around and what they were doing. No, hiding in this basement, though we still had water and electricity and enough food, I knew nothing about the outside world. It was silent, suffocatingly silent. Sometimes, I was almost hoping for my father to come back and smash a few more things, and for old Baihua to scold me a few more times. After finishing the hot and sour noodles, I suddenly felt uninterested in everything. Little Serena took the initiative to take away the noodle container from my hands and handed me a tissue. I didn't rush back to my bedroom. Instead, I sat on the sofa, lost in thought. Little Serena finished cleaning up and sat on the sofa across from me, watching me. I couldn't be bothered to interact with her, just lost in my own thoughts. Zachary took away his instant noodle container and came back to find both me and little Serena sitting silently on the sofa. He asked, "What's wrong?" I didn't speak. Little Serena gently suggested, "Maybe Brielle is tired. How about we watch a movie?" I glanced at her, dropped my eyelids, and remained silent. Zachary looked at me and softly proposed, "How about we play a game?" I looked up at him, not quite understanding his suggestion. "We don't have playing cards here." "So what game could we play?" Zachary smiled. "How about Truth or Dare? We've played it in our dorm, and it's quite fun." I hadn't played it before and didn't quite get it. Little Serena giggled and joined in. "Haven't you played it, Brielle? We've played it in our dorm too. You can just use rock, paper, scissors. The winner asks a question, and the loser must answer truthfully. If they don't want to speak the truth, they can choose to do a dare, like confessing to someone randomly." I became a bit interested. Little Serena looked around and then said, "It's not really suitable here for big dares, but how about we drink as a penalty? Brielle, you have a lot of wine in the storage. How about a drink for each loss?" I smiled. That was my grandmother's wine. She liked to have a drink before bed when she was alive. In the first round, I won, and Zachary lost. I asked with a smile, "Zachary, was I your first love?" Zachary's face turned red, and he quickly downed the drink in front of him. In the second round, little Serena won, and Zachary lost again. Little Serena's eyes sparkled as she asked, "Junior, who is the person of your dreams?" Zachary's face turned even redder, and he downed another drink. In the third round, I won, and little Serena lost. I asked with a smile, "Do you like Zachary?" Little Serena awkwardly replied, "I do like him, but not in a romantic way. Don't get me wrong, but I'll drink this anyway." She picked up her drink and downed it. In the fourth round, I lost, and little Serena won. Little Serena asked with a smile, "Brielle, why don't you like me? Is it because of Zachary?" I nodded honestly and said, "Yes." Zachary watched me, his smile so warm and gentle it made my cheeks burn. In the fifth round, I lost again, and little Serena won again. She asked, "Brielle, did you have any forewarning about the apocalypse? Why are you so well prepared here?" I didn't know. My mom told me to prepare for a year's worth. I didn't look at her, tears glistening in my eyes, as I picked up the glass and drank it all. In the sixth round, I lost again. It was still little Serena who won. She asked, "Brielle, besides here, do you have any other place to take refuge?" "No more." I glanced at the stairway, tears rolling down my cheeks as I lifted my cup once again and downed it in one gulp. I don't know how many drinks I had. All I knew was that eventually, it seemed like both little Serena and Zachary were dancing in front of me, their movements clumsy and irritating. I'm not sure how much Zachary drank either. I remember it was either him losing or me, but little Serena always won, only rarely losing. I felt a resentment building inside. I asked Zachary, "Why did you approach me? Do you like me? Or is it little Serena you like?" Little Serena asked me, "Brielle, are you drunk? Besides here, do you have any other place to hide? What secrets did your mom tell you? What did she leave you? What other secrets do you have?" I kept drinking, one cup after another until I ended up collapsing on the floor, hugging the cup. I felt someone carry me to the sofa. It was Zachary. I felt a blanket draped over me. My body felt feverishly hot, and I struggled to open my eyes but couldn't, so I flailed my arms, angrily shouting, "Go away, don't cover me." I descended into chaos. The world fell into silence again, after a long while. I heard little Serena say, "Zachary, she's drunk." Zachary just grunted, "Drunk?" Little Serena scoffed, "I want to get drunk too. Have a drink with me." Zachary didn't make a sound. After a long time, I heard him getting up from the sofa, footsteps, the sound of a door opening, rustling as he searched for something, then footsteps again as he returned, the sound of opening a bottle, clinking glasses, then gulping down the drink. After a while, I heard Zachary ask, "Did you know this was going to happen?" Silence. Zachary asked again, "Who exactly instructed you to make me approach her?" Silence. Zachary gulped down his drink. "Can we go back? Can those things outside be eradicated?" Silence. "What about my parents? Were they eaten by those things, or did they become one of them?" Sobbing, little Serena cried. The sound of drinking, little Serena crying while drinking. Zachary went over to pull her away, saying, "Stop drinking." But she collapsed into Zachary's arms. The two embraced, hurriedly moving towards the bedroom where little Serena slept. The sound of the door closing. I slowly opened my eyes. Just wait, let me finish this last act, and then I can truly relax. 8. The grand finale. The lights in the living room were still on. I got up, went to the bathroom, washed my face, then I headed to the kitchen. There was half an onion on the cutting board. Little Serena's cooking skills were really ordinary. Chopping an onion had her in tears, so Zachary, feeling sorry for her, had tossed it aside, not letting her chop it anymore. I picked up the onion, made a cut, and the pungent smell flooded out. The fresh cut surface, I quickly rubbed a piece against my eyes. This sensation, the sourness hit me, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I hurried out of the kitchen, through the living room, and headed toward little Serena's room. Opening the door, I found them both, wrapped in each other's arms. Lying motionless on the bed, with a snap, I turned on the light, but they still didn't move. This was awkward. It seemed they were genuinely exhausted, sleeping so deeply. Here I was, tears streaming down my face, and how could I showcase my acting if they wouldn't wake up? Reluctantly, I closed the door I had opened and took a step back, then kicked it open. The door slammed against the wall and rebounded sharply. This time, the noise was significant, and the two on the bed sprang up almost simultaneously. I clung to the doorframe with one hand and wiped my eyes with the other. Tears flowed freely. The sleepy pair hadn't quite realized what was happening and stared at me in a daze. Pointing at them, I accused, "You two, you adulterers." Turning to Zachary, I continued, "Didn't you say she was your senior? So, it's her you like, you, both of you. Get out." Finally reacting, little Serena screamed and grabbed the blanket to cover herself. Zachary was slower, bending over to grab clothes from the floor to cover himself. "You two liars," I shouted angrily, fleeing from Serena's door to the stairs, pointing and screaming, "Get out, just get out." Amid my screaming, they frantically gathered themselves. Zachary, overwhelmed with shame, stammered, "Brielle, I'm sorry, I was drunk, I don't know what happened." Feeling utterly disillusioned, I suddenly stopped screaming. I walked slowly to the living room sofa and sat down. I glanced at the messy wine glasses on the coffee table, then at the two uneasy figures opposite me. "So, you mean it was drunken misconduct?" Zachary fumbled for words, his gaze darting around, unsure how to respond. I scoffed, looking at Serena. "And you?" Serena burst into tears, probably thinking she looked pitifully beautiful. "Brielle, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what came over me. I was just sad. Just scared. It just happened." I wiped my eyes again as tears kept streaming down. "Zachary, I'm a lonely person. My dad has a new family and never even looks at me. My mom is hardly ever home. The last time I saw her was 3 or 4 years ago. Sometimes I even wonder if I have a mother at all." I grabbed my wine glass, filled it up, and downed it in one go. Tears mixed with laughter. I thought, maybe I was born to be unlovable, born to be alone. And maybe one day I won't be able to keep going and just die. That's why I've always kept to myself and never mingled with others. Do you even remember how you came into my life? Do you remember how you used to give me a packet of cookies and a glass of water every day? I've wondered countless times, why would you like someone like me? I used to think, what good does it do you to be close to someone like me? Maybe you just liked me, that's why you came, and you brought her along. I pointed at little Serena, tears streaming down my face again. I endured it, thinking as long as your affection for me was genuine, I would feel sweetness in my heart, and I could keep going. Zachary opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "Don't say anything, just go upstairs, it won't kill you. If worst comes to worst, take everything downstairs with you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to discuss myself." Zachary stood there, at a loss. This coward only knows how to dodge at crucial moments. Little Serena rushed over and clung to my legs. Brielle, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please don't make us leave. I didn't mean it." Her pleading was cut short by my kick. I sneered, picking up another wine bottle and smashing it towards her head. Little Serena dodged quickly, and the bottle hit her shoulder instead. She screamed and fell to the ground. I swung the bottle again, ready to strike, but Zachary lunged and grabbed my arm. He pushed me away and quickly pulled little Serena up, retreating a few steps to shield her with his body. I stared blankly at him, his gaze flitted about before firming up. "I'm sorry, Brielle, I owe you an apology, but you can't hurt people." I slowly lowered my raised arm and asked him, "So, are you leaving?" Zachary glanced at the stairs, then back at me. "Sorry, Brielle, we can't leave." My voice was brittle and weak. "What do you mean?" Zachary looked down. "You know, with your stepmother and your father upstairs, there's no good outcome for us." I scoffed. "So you're just here to discuss me, and I have to endure it." Zachary spoke softly, yet coldly. "Even though this is your territory now, the world has changed. It's survival of the fittest. Have you forgotten how the upper floor became your father's domain?" I laughed. A light yet mad laugh. "So, I let you in. You let them in, and they took over upstairs, and now you want to take over here." Zachary looked at me, no longer evasive. "I'm sorry, Brielle." I stood up, looking steadily at them both, bent down, and began picking up the wine bottles, glasses, and miscellaneous things scattered around the table and floor. In a fit of rage, she hurled objects at them, screaming, "Die, all of you." Zachary shielded little Serena, hiding behind the staircase. Once I had thrown everything, he spoke calmly. Done venting. Now clean this up. I looked at him in surprise and chuckled. I see shades of my father in you. Does living like a bandit thrill you? I slowly backed up until I hit the wall. Zachary, I've wanted to die for a long time. Alone during the day, alone at night, alone forever. Tears came again. I thought that with you here, I wouldn't feel desperate anymore. Who knew? You'd be even more shameless than my father, I murmured to myself. What's the point of living like this? How is it any different from those walking corpses outside? It's just more painful, more sorrowful, more hopeless. Perhaps my heartbroken act touched the last bit of pity in Zachary. He stepped towards me, but little Serena held him back. I found the mechanism and looked at Zachary with a faint smile. I'm leaving, and I hope I never meet you in the next life. With a click, the hidden door opened. I quickly slipped inside, shut the door, locked it, and scrambled along the passage. Hearing their frantic cries behind me, reaching the stone, I opened it, quickly entered, and scooped up Jojo, who had dashed towards me. After more than a month, Jojo had gained weight. Without a second thought, I grabbed Jojo and rushed to the kitchen fridge, took out 3 bags of plasma, and hurried back. I put down Jojo, opened the door, and ran out towards the passage again. I don't know how long I ran, normally. It should take about 5 to 6 minutes since the passage isn't wide and I had to stoop, slowing me down, but this time, it felt like only 2 or 3 minutes before I reached the end. At the end of the passage was a stone door. I crouched behind it, catching my breath and listening, silent. I took a deep breath, stripped off my clothes, tore and chewed them with all my might, and bundled them up messily in my arms, placing the plasma bags on top. I opened the stone door. All was quiet outside. I bit open the plasma bags, letting the blood splatter on the clothes, and slowly peeked out, scattering them around. The scent of blood spread, attracting the monsters, I hoped. I didn't dare linger and quickly ran back to the passage, holding the plasma bag. The remaining cold and sticky blood made my scalp tingle as I retreated, watching for any traces that might arouse suspicion. Finally, I reached the entrance to my secret base. I went in, closed the door, and activated the mechanism. I collapsed on the ground beneath the oppressive weight of the stone walls at the entrance, letting Jojo leap into my arms. 9. Back, safe at last. I'm ill. It seems like a cold, possibly with a fever too. Groggy. I cuddled with Jojo in bed, falling into a deep, timeless sleep, weak and unable to tell if I was awake or delirious. I wondered what was wrong with me, whether I had undressed and run outside, freezing in the cold. Though it wasn't even winter yet, and I hadn't felt cold at the time. I thought I needed to get up, to drink water, eat something, check on what Zachary and little Serena were doing, and see if they really believed I had run off heartbroken, only to be torn apart and devoured by those creatures outside. But then I thought, maybe it's nice to be in this fuzzy state. What's the point in waking up, alone, always alone? I'm not even sure if one day, I might just lose my mind, or perhaps, am I insane already? Does the world around me truly exist? Do little Serena and Zachary really exist? Do those stiff, bloodthirsty, man-eating, immensely strong monsters outside really exist? Do my father, Lao Baihua, and his son truly exist? Does my mother truly exist? I got out of bed to drink water, gulping down a bellyful, then leaned over the sink crying. This time, no onions were needed. The tears just poured out. I didn't know why I was crying, after all. I had escaped from Lao Baihua and them, and from Zachary and them. I had successfully created the illusion that I had left in despair and was eaten by the monsters outside. If all went as expected, given the intelligence of Zachary and little Serena, they shouldn't see through it, at least for now. I was safe. But why was I crying? I carefully balanced myself, slowly got up, and walked to the fridge to grab 2 apples, returned to the sink to wash them, then held them in my hands and ate. After finishing the apples, I stumbled back to bed and continued to sleep, drink, eat an apple, sleep, repeat. I don't know how much time passed before I finally fully awoke. The first thing I did upon waking was check on Jojo's dog bed. It had been over a month, and although I had trained Jojo to use the toilet, I was still worried it might have made a mess. The dog bed was clean, with several bags of dog food next to it, one opened and spilling some contents, but thankfully not too messy. Jojo had become quite skilled at opening dog food bags. I checked the bathroom too, which was also clean, with just a few drops of urine on the toilet seat, which was pretty good. Smiling, I looked down at the excited Jojo running around my feet and asked, "Jojo, did you learn how to flush the toilet?" Jojo barked lightly and excitedly a few times, happily jumping onto the toilet tank and pressing down with a paw. I laughed. Jojo was truly a smart and obedient dog. The second thing I did was make myself a pot of millet porridge, adding a bit of crushed jujube and some brown sugar. The third thing was to take a shower, a comforting hot bath that revitalized me entirely. After the shower, the porridge was ready. I didn't even bother pouring it into a bowl. I just took the pot and sat down in front of the computer. I turned on the computer. launched the program, and adjusted the volume. Suddenly, Old White Flower's voice came through, startling Jojo, who was curled up on my lap, causing him to jump up. Son, we must save food now, eat less, consider it a diet. Old White Flower's voice sounded weak and exhausted. Am I going to starve to death? Mom, I'm hungry, my chubby younger brother's voice boomed, seemingly unaffected by the reduction in food. It appeared they were managing quite well without feeding 3 extra mouths. We need to find a way to pry open the basement door. How come we never realized there was a basement here before? It's so frustrating, I laughed. Disaster struck unexpectedly, and these days, while everyone seemed calm and lively on the surface, with Old White Flower frequently bickering with little Serena, and my father confidently believing he had seen through Serena's true colors, asserting his authority at home, everyone's hearts were actually hollow in times of fear. People forget many obvious things. Moreover, they had just made a mess at my downtown apartment, even getting stunned by my stun gun in their fury. I guess they smashed my door without breaking it, then went home only to face the apocalypse, with monsters devouring humans, and eventually seeking refuge with me. Weren't they feeling guilty, despite my father eventually reclaiming his dominance at home? He barely dared to look me in the eye. Could I infer that, as a father? He still had a shred of conscience left. However, that bit of conscience wouldn't last long. Once the food at home was depleted, I might end up being dinner for my own father. Of course, before they could react, I fled with Zachary and little Serena. That finally woke them up. That little wretch Brielle. Just a few days ago I thought she was different from that couple, but then she turned her back on us, favoring outsiders. What kind of daughter did you raise? She's a thankless wolf. Old White Flower rambled on endlessly, criticizing me harshly while my father remained silent. I could imagine him frowning, deeply troubled as he tried to break down the basement door. I chuckled, switching the channel. I wanted to hear what Zachary and little Serena were up to. After a while, I heard little Serena's voice. Do you think Brielle is really dead? No response. There was blood, clothes. Did those monsters just consume people whole? Do you really think she cared so much about you? Just over such a trivial matter, she didn't want to live anymore. Finally, Zachary spoke. These past years, besides me, she hardly talked to anyone else. In her father's home, there was no sense of warmth. Her mother wasn't around, alone and isolated. Probably, over these years, I was her only source of warmth. I laughed. Is this how all men are? When I pretended to be heartbroken, he bullied me into submission, using his physical strength and the fact that he was the only man around. When I left, when I died, he got what he wanted and suddenly began to pity me. Little Serena scoffed. What? Did you get too caught up in the act? Did you actually fall for her? Since you were her only warmth, why didn't she let you know when she escaped here? Zachary was silent for a while, then suddenly asked, who exactly is she? Who really is Brielle's mother? Why did they want me to get close to her, at this point, with monsters everywhere outside, and Brielle left with nothing but rags? What else is there to hide? Little Serena sighed. I don't know. I really don't know. I only know that Brielle's mother is important, and she might have left something behind for Brielle, something they wanted me to find by getting close to her. How could I, a girl, get close? Just as you transferred schools, I had you do it. Have you been in contact with those people these days? Little Serena scoffed. How could I contact them? The network is down. The last contact was them telling me to come find her with you, to keep an eye on her and find whatever she's hidden. Are those people overthinking it? Even if her mother really is someone important with something important, would they entrust it to a young girl? She was only a teenager 3 years ago, right? Little Serena sighed. Probably. Look around here. Upstairs there are fresh vegetables, fruits, meat, and grains. Downstairs there are some convenience foods and a few storable vegetables. This is just a kid who knows a bit more about living than most. Doesn't seem very cunning. I also doubt her mother would entrust her with anything significant. Zachary's voice was melancholic. What will we do now? We know nothing about the outside world. Little Serena's voice was hollow. I don't know. My parents, I don't know how they are. Little Serena was silent for a long while. I don't know. A long silence ensued. I turned off the program, no longer listening to their voices. I held Jojo and lay on the couch, staring at my secret base with eyes wide open, where there was no sound. It was a safe and quiet place. Yes, I had installed listening devices in both the upstairs and basement living rooms. Initially, I wanted to install cameras, but they were too easily detectable and would be useless if the network went down. Listening devices are durable, less noticeable, and not limited by the network. So I ultimately chose to use them. Now, with these devices, I can at least judge the movements of those few people by their voices. From their conversations, I could make the following conclusions. First, the Bai family couldn't pry open the basement door. They were upstairs, while Zachary and little Serena were in the basement, leading relatively independent lives. Second, little Serena and Zachary likely believed that I was heartbroken by Zachary, without the courage to continue living. and ran out only to be eaten by the monsters outside, meaning, for now, I am safe. 10. Someone's coming. Have you ever lived alone? Just you and no one else, Mom said. Brielle, you need to learn how to cook, to wash clothes by yourself. I learned to maintain cleanliness and navigate each moment of loneliness on my own. I already knew how to cook. Back when I was living at my father's place, my stepmother, Lao Baihua, wouldn't take care of me. When I was hungry, I'd cook noodles for myself, initially just plain noodles in water, until I learned to add some greens. It took a while before I realized that vegetables needed to be washed first. Later, I mastered the art of secretly adding an egg, though it often ended up undercooked, and the noodles turned into a sticky mess while the egg still hadn't set properly. I remember crying while eating, always wondering why my mom wouldn't come back. Had she really run off with another man? Why didn't she want me anymore after my grandmother died? It took me a long time to realize that noodles could be cooked with oil, salt, and a variety of seasonings. It took even longer to learn how to cook other meals and to do the laundry. During those years, no one cared for me. Lao Baihua only cursed, and my father only scolded or occasionally resorted to hitting me. A slap here, a kick there. I was like a mouse, always dodging and hiding. Finally, my mother came back, giving me a new home and new hope, along with countless heart-stopping moments. Have you ever experienced constant fear? She told me to be ready to run, to prepare a year's worth of food, and to go to my grandmother's place. She didn't tell me when she would send me away. So every day was filled with terror, with every little noise making my heart race. I rode my little electric bike bit by bit to the market and the wholesale city, summoning all my strength and courage, clumsily asking vendors how to store potatoes, eggplants, and how long bell peppers could last. Have you ever experienced me going bad to the point of questioning your existence? Have you ever opened a bag of rice or millet to find it crawling with tiny black insects? Have you ever struggled to fit a much-needed fridge through the entrance of my secret hideout? Countless times, I broke down but dared not cry out loud. I could only let the tears flow silently. Every summer and winter break, I was alone here, shivering in the silent nights while sitting at the bedroom window, staring into the dark, murky sky. I carefully calculated the amount of food for each meal, each day, and each month. How much cooking oil, condiments, and how many times I washed the clothes. How many sets of underwear I changed, the peak summer temperatures, the lowest winter temperatures, how to survive summer, how to survive winter. Many times, I stood on the windowsill, imagining what it would be like to jump, to embrace the chaos, wondering if death would end my fears. Zachary's appearance, far from being a pleasant surprise, only intensified the unbearable terror. I looked at my pale, lackluster reflection in the mirror countless times, thinking I was not at all attractive. Why would any boy like me? Several times, I thought to myself, what does it matter why he did it? What's the point of living like this? So what if he deceives me? Is it really so wrong to just hold hands and feel another person's warmth? Unfortunately, I can't seem to let things go, to turn a blind eye. Perhaps I'm still too selfish, seeing only myself, sighing. I stopped my wild thoughts and wandered around in my large robe within my secret base. It's now late autumn, the most temperate time of year here. While it gets cold outside in the mornings and evenings, the temperature here remains comfortably over 20 degrees Celsius. I've established a daily routine for myself. I wake up at 8 every morning, cook and eat, then make rounds in my base to check if anything unusual has appeared in the water, if the food in the cold storage has attracted any bugs, and how much food is left for Jojo. Jojo is a quiet and gentle dog who keeps me company every day. He sleeps when I sleep, wakes when I wake, and eats when I eat, finishing leftovers or his own food. As I roam around the base, he joyfully circles around me. I find myself visiting the cold storage several times a day, counting bags of rice, how much jasmine, brown, black, and oat rice there is, counting the cured meats, fish, chicken, duck, counting the dried vegetables, dried tofu, eggplant, asparagus, radish, cabbage, lettuce, counting the pickled and spicy vegetables, sauerkraut, spicy cabbage, spicy radish, spicy cucumber, counting the dried seafood, dried shrimp, scallops, clams, sea cucumber, shrimp skins, counting the instant foods, instant noodles, hot and sour noodles, rice noodles, snail noodles, and many other miscellaneous items, all vacuum sealed in airtight bags, filling up the entire cold room. I believe I've stockpiled quite comprehensively, enough to last me. After my inspection rounds, I sit in front of the computer, open the program, and listen to what the people next door and upstairs are saying and doing. The sounds are varied and strange. Sometimes it's the deep, instructive voice of a man, presumably a father teaching his son. Other times, it's the voice of old Mrs. by coaxing her son as they hang out the sheets, or my chubby younger brother complaining about still being hungry. This family seems to be living peacefully. The two neighbors spend their days eating and drinking, mumbling complaints in their days. occasionally mentioning family members, which makes little Serena cry at times. Then it's time for lunch, another round of inspections. Sometimes I nap, but never more than half an hour. Then I read books, watch movies or TV shows, or just daydream, trying hard to guess what they are doing based on the sounds, trying to figure out what's happening outside. After dinner, another round of inspections. Then more reading or watching TV before going to bed. Sometimes I suffer from insomnia. Other times I fall into a light, restless sleep. This marks the 7th day since I secluded myself in my base, a full week. The daily routines of the neighbors and the people upstairs repeat day after day. I feel safe yet slightly uneasy. I no longer turn off the program, just turn down the volume. I want to know what they are doing and saying all day, to gauge the outside situation through their voices. On the 10th day, just after completing my second inspection of the cold storage at noon, a piercing scream rings in my ears. I startle, freezing in place, and it takes me a while before I realize it's old Mrs. Bai's voice. Realizing it's her, I relax a bit, but only then do I notice I'm drenched in sweat. I want to move, but suddenly find my legs have gone weak. Holding onto the sofa beside me, I slowly bend down, attempting to pick up Jojo, who is also frightened by the shriek of old lady Baihua, but found that my arms were too weak, and it took several tries before I could manage to lift him. Old Lady Baihua's scream, accompanied by the panic-stricken running and the suddenly sharp, pubescent voice of my chubby brother saying, "What do we do, Dad?" followed by my father's harried scolding. "Don't panic, they haven't gotten in, have they?" With a sobbing tone, old Lady Baihua asked, "Will that door hold? It's just a truck, after all." Her husband didn't respond, and she didn't ask further. I turned up the volume and heard their panicked breathing, with old Lady Baihua and her son occasionally unable to suppress their cries of terror. After a long while, the three of them took a deep breath, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Much later, old Lady Baihua asked, "Do you think they will come back?" Her husband still didn't respond. My chubby brother started crying. "I'm scared, Dad. Look at those zombies. They're still crawling even after being hit by the car." Old Lady Baihua also cried. "What kind of people are these, with such fierce and evil spirits, and machetes too? If they really got in, would we still have a chance to live?" After a long sigh, my father said, "They haven't gotten in, have they? This place is so remote and the roads so poor. Only that kind of big truck could get here. The zombies outside have been mostly dealt with by them. It should be safer now." They all fell silent. Only my chubby brother continued to sob for a long time. The invaders kept coming. That night, I didn't hear my chubby brother complaining about being hungry. The family of 3 fell into an eerie silence until midnight, when I heard old Lady Baihua clumsily getting up to fetch water, her voice weary and hoarse. "The boy has a fever." The couple hardly slept all night, busy attending to their son, who cried and deliriously talked. That night, I also didn't hear the usual noise of the neighbors arguing. They too were caught in an eerie silence, and I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning until I didn't know when. I had just about closed my eyes when the alarm went off. It turns out, what's scarier isn't the zombies, but people, because zombies only have strength, while people, they have brains. I thought I only needed to guard against those eyeing my mother. I thought by escaping from Zachary and little Serena, creating the illusion of being devoured by zombies, I would be safe. Yes, if no one discovered it, of course, I would be safe. But what if someone did, like my father's family and Zachary and Serena? These days, although also terrified by zombies, my father's family was constantly fretting about food, while Serena and Zachary lived in a drunken stupor. But the premise was that they knew they were actually safe. This villa, far from the city center, only had a few zombies that had followed them when they escaped. There was no other threat. Moreover, the villa was fortified like a fortress. If you don't provoke those zombies, they don't even think to break in. Even if you foolishly provoke them, no matter how strong or fierce they are, they can't break in. So these days, their fundamental panic was about how the world suddenly entered this apocalypse, and the fear of the unknown future. As long as there was still food and drink, at least within this fortress, we could still scrape by. But now, things have changed. People armed with lethal weapons have come knocking. These individuals, driving large trucks, recklessly charged and nearly broke through the villa's gates. Moreover, they are not afraid of zombies, those that could tear a living person to shreds. In fact, these zombies have even become their prey. Who knows how many more attacks like this the villa can withstand? No wonder the fairies have stopped fighting. No wonder my chubby brother is feverish. No wonder I am suffering from insomnia. With a headache, I barely managed to get up and headed straight for the cold room. I pulled aside a storage rack, opened a secret door, and entered the last hidden chamber of my base. This was my last resort. Inside, it resembled Brielle's laboratory. filled with various instruments and materials. I didn't like it here. It felt eerie. I didn't even want to look around. I went straight to the point, reached up to open a drawer, and took out a small packet of powder. After closing the drawer, I left, shut the door, pulled the storage rack back, exited the cold room, and returned to the sofa. I patted Jojo's trembling head, sighed, and slipped the packet of powder into my pocket. It was a potent anesthetic. Just one inhalation could knock a person out instantly. Don't ask me how I know. I tried it myself. 3 years ago, right here in this base, I took a light inhalation and slept for over 10 hours. It's somewhat akin to the mythical obedience potion, though this one is a powder, not a liquid. For the past few years, to be precise, ever since my mother died, I've always carried a packet of this powder. Though I've never used it on anyone else, that's why I dared to let my father's family in. As well as little Serena and Zachary. Even if they started trouble as soon as they entered, I could just throw a handful of the powder, and they'd be down instantly. I never expected to find myself on the brink of danger again just after a few days of relaxation, thinking I wouldn't need to be constantly vigilant for a while. I pet Jojo, get up, and decide to cook a hearty meal. Then, I'll pick up my long-neglected taekwondo practice to stay fit, just in case something happens. I at least want to be able to run fast. After all, there's no escaping what's bound to come. Why scare myself constantly? Being single, if I have to, I can always tough it out like a warrior woman 18 years from now. I don't know what came over me, but suddenly I felt enlightened. It was as if a weight had been lifted, leaving me feeling refreshed and energetic every day. I stopped rigidly sticking to scheduled plans and started doing things as I pleased, ensuring only that I ate well, drank well, and exercised. The rest of my time was spent reading, watching TV, playing games, or eavesdropping on Old White Flower's endless curses and increasingly explicit conversations with the fairies. Sometimes, it felt like I was living in an idyllic paradise. When the second wave of intruders arrived, I even felt a sense of relief that they had finally come. Old White Flower's cries were restrained and suppressed, mixed with an almost breaking fear. My portly younger brother's cry for Mom was abruptly cut off, likely silenced by Old White Flower or our father. I turned up the volume and strained my ears to listen, faintly catching the sound of impacts. This time, the commotion didn't last long, and soon all was quiet. After a while, I heard Old White Flower exhale in relief. "They're not the same people as last time," her husband responded. Yes, these people had no weapons. They seemed like a family, probably escaping from the city to the suburbs looking for a place to hide. Old White Flower breathed a sigh of relief again. "Are there any other villas nearby?" My father answered. "I don't think so. This villa was an unfinished building, originally tidied up by Brielle's grandmother." Old White Flower simply acknowledged with an "oh," and said no more. When the third wave of intruders came, Old White Flower didn't even scream. Only when they left did she comment. Brielle's grandmother was truly talented. That door is of excellent quality. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months passed. Several groups came. The most formidable nearly broke down the door, while others tried to soften us by sobbing outside with their children, begging us to open the door and shelter them. The family of 3 inside remained silent in agreement. Over these days, they had completely detached themselves from the fear of outsiders banging on the doors, their villa's fortress-like defenses giving them ample confidence. However, I noticed that my father was becoming increasingly silent. Then one day, I heard little Serena's cry of surprise. It turned out that my father had somehow managed to open the first door to the basement entrance. I heard my father's angry roar for the first time. He probably never expected that the door he had painstakingly researched and finally pried open after 3 months would reveal another secret door. From little Serena's cry of surprise and joy, I heard Old White Flower's angry stomping and cursing. I also heard my father's bitter and fierce promise, "Don't worry, I'll get it open eventually." And I heard Zachary nonchalantly comforting little Serena, "Don't worry, give him another 3 months, they'll have starved to death by then." I frowned. Am I being too sensitive? From Zachary's simple words, I sensed a completely different emotion than before. If I remember correctly, in the past, when it was just little Serena and him, Serena was the one in control. No matter how well she played the role of a delicate flower, Zachary was actually at her beck and call. Now, with just a single sentence, he exuded a calmness, a certainty, and even a composed confidence. This is quite intriguing. Has he found a sense of authority in a dynamic where traditionally the man is strong and the woman is weak? Is this the origin of the superiority men have felt over women for centuries? Is this the root of the shameless demand he made that day after I exposed him, when he asked me to clean up the mess despite the brief awkwardness? Basically, it boils down to, I'm the man, you're the woman, you can't beat me, so you have to listen to me, even if I'm on your turf. Even if I'm consuming your resources, it's the law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest, a brazen theory of the bully feeling utterly secure. A hole has been poked. Another month has passed, counting from when I received the message from my mom. It's now been over 5 months since the zombie outbreak began, almost half a year. This past month, the neighbors have been living in turmoil. Old Bai and his family were determined to break through the door, taking turns at it every day. The constant clanging nearly driving Zachary and Serena insane. They probably think I've hidden a supermarket's worth of supplies in the basement. One day, exhausted, my father threw his tools aside and started playing the sympathy card. Brielle, there's nothing left to eat up here. Do you really want to watch your dad starve to death? Brielle, I know. Over the years, I haven't been attentive enough, and that's my fault. It's just that you're a girl and I'm a man. I didn't know how to interact with a girl. It's my fault. Please forgive me, Brielle, my silly girl. Think about it. No matter what, you and your dad are blood relatives. What's Zachary? Just a heartbreaker who only cares about other women. Brielle, why aren't you responding to your dad? Has Zachary already taken control over you? Has he tied you up? Has he? I'm telling you. Even if he hasn't controlled you or tied you up yet, I'm a man. I understand men. I understand human nature. Brielle, only your biological parents would sacrifice everything for their child. All other relationships, whether it's a husband or a boyfriend, when it's a matter of life or death, they only think of themselves, even if it means sacrificing you just to live another second. Brielle, I don't know how much food you still have, but you should know, no matter how much you've stored, it will run out one day. No, having a strong man by your side. Your food is no longer your own. Even you are not your own. No one can win against the fist. Brielle, just open the door, even if you don't give me any food. I just want you to come upstairs. I can finally rest easy knowing you are safe and whole. I was worried that Zachary might devour you completely down there. Brielle, if you still don't believe me, ask Zachary. Between you and his dear Serena, whom would he choose to give up? That was probably the most he's ever spoken to me over the years. A record breaker, a girl starved for love, upon hearing such heartfelt words from her elusive father, would likely burst into tears, wouldn't she? Perhaps, in a moment of impulse, she might even fling open the door and embrace her tearful father in a hug of the century. What do you call shamelessness? This is it. I listened to his endless prattle with an expressionless face, utterly unmoved inside. This is my biological father. Indeed, as a child, I lived with my grandmother. To me, my father was just the man who stood beside my mother and smiled at me when she came home, imposing, tall. He would occasionally hug me. His chest was firm, his shoulders broad, and I was delighted. Later, I forgot when it started, perhaps after my grandmother passed away and I had to return to live with him, I realized this man was nothing like the one in my memories. So many times I wanted to ask, are you really the dad who used to smile at me beside Mom? He was irritable, indifferent, quick to hit, quick to kick, always frowning, never sparing me even a glance. Watching him grow uglier, fatter, and greasier by the day, any fantasies or familial affection I had for him evaporated completely, and now, he thinks he can move me with tenderness. Don't tell me I wouldn't respond to him even if I weren't in the basement, even if I were there. I wouldn't give him a single word. Crocodile tears. Do you think I'm foolish? He performed a monologue of sorrow all by himself. Had an audience but no response. Neither little Serena nor Zachary made a sound. That night, I heard a marital dialogue. Old Baihua's voice was unusually soft. Do you really plan to let Brielle come up? We're about to starve. No response. Old Baihua grew anxious. What's wrong with you? That little wretch might not even be your child. Do you really care? She doesn't care about you. What kind of daughter is that? Enjoying the best of everything with outsiders while her own father starves. Still no response, and old Baihua became angry. Or is it that you're still hung up on Brielle's mom? Don't think I don't know. Over these years, have you regretted it? Have you forgotten she cuckolded you? This time, the man spoke. Whether I was cuckolded or not, you know it, I know it. What kind of person she was, I'm very clear about. I'm not hung up on her, and she clearly doesn't care whether I am or not. What do you mean? Old Baihua's voice sharpened again. What? You hope she cares about you? What kind of person is she? High and mighty, holy and inviolable. Nonsense. Was it you who was not good enough for her back then? Why didn't you kneel down, serve her well, and keep her from leaving you, instead of bothering me? Get the current situation straight. The man's voice was sinister. This is not the past. Look at the crowd after crowd coming to smash the door. We're not in a society governed by law anymore. It's a survival of the fittest world now. You better shut up, or I'll strangle you, and your death will be in vain. You, old white flower, like a goose about to burst into song, suddenly found her neck seized, and after struggling in vain, she gave up. Zachary and Serena were also chatting, these days, besides eating and drinking. They fought off demons and rarely chatted idly, only occasionally reminiscing about their childhoods. Through their memories, I figured out that they were neighbors as children, childhood sweethearts, only Serena was beautiful, and Zachary, being 2 years younger, was always the boy next door who never caught her eye. Zachary, do you think Brielle would be moved by that old man if she were here? Zachary sighed. Probably. She's so starved for love. A child lacking love might throw herself into the flames for such warmth, even if it's fake. Heh, Serena suddenly laughed. So, do you think that old man truly regrets it? Is he really afraid we'd corrupt his daughter? Humph, Zachary scoffed. Regret? He regrets not turning against us sooner, not driving us out earlier so he could have all the resources to himself. See, no one's a fool. They all play dumb when it suits them. Now, everything's out in the open, no more pretenses. Old White Flower's family found knocking and banging too laborious and adopted two methods of attack. First, they desperately flooded the basement. I heard Serena cursing, annoyed by the water everywhere. Home didn't lack water. Old White Flower must have hooked up a hose, running water 24/7 for 3 days, indeed affecting the basement. I heard Serena and Zachary frustratedly dragging furniture around. Unfortunately, the basement's waterproofing was too effective, and the drain worked too well. Other than affecting their mood, it was useless. Then, Old White Flower had a bizarre idea, saving up urine for several days and using it to flood the basement, an astonishingly bizarre strategy. I heard Serena's panicked screams and Zachary's furious cursing. If not for Old White Flower's piercing laughter, I might have applauded her creativity. You can imagine how sour the basement must have smelled. No door can withstand such long-term destruction. Finally, one day, I heard Old White Flower's excited scream, "Husband, come quick, I've broken through." Then came the sound of chaotic running, then the sound of two groups cursing at each other, then Old White Flower's more arrogant laughter, as if she had poured something indescribable into the basement through the hole, which must have been quite smooth, as I heard both Serena and Zachary scream simultaneously. 13. The real war had begun. Even though a hole was made, it didn't mean the basement door could be easily opened, even if the people upstairs could stretch an arm through to trigger the mechanism and open the door, allowing them entry to the basement. They dared not move. It must have been my fat brother who tried. As he let out a painful, duck-like scream, I heard Old White Flower cursing fiercely and concernedly asking if her son was in pain. I guessed that the fat man's hand must have been hit by something from the two people below, however. There was one advantage. With that hole, the people above could drop all sorts of bizarre things down at any time. The two in the basement, although still unfazed by the thought of those above coming down, were quite unable to tolerate the various disgusting items that appeared from time to time, especially little Serena, who went ballistic after Old White Flower threw down a sanitary pad, cursing vehemently. She and Old White Flower had a fierce showdown, silencing the men both above and below with their shouting. While listening to their quarrel, I couldn't help but laugh. Old White Flower had shown her true colors early on. She had only been at the villa for a few days and had already forgotten her previously demure demeanor, stunning my father completely. It was no surprise she could hold her own in a shouting match with little Serena. Little Serena was different. No matter how pretentious, how much of an actress, or how deceptive she had been, men like my father, even though he had bluntly exposed her, still found her appealing, unless they were driven by desperation. But now, Serena had thrown caution to the wind, abandoning her act and hurling insults like, "Who knows how many men you've been with?" Her relentless tirade must have shocked Zachary and certainly frightened my father. I covered my mouth, stifling my laughter, slightly regretting not installing a camera. Having only audio and no video meant I had to use my imagination, which wasn't nearly as entertaining. The two women were relentless, and I seriously suspected they were just venting their accumulated frustrations. They kept at it for 2.5 hours until I almost fell asleep, and then they finally stopped. After the women had vented, it was the men's turn to negotiate. Unfortunately, the negotiation was unsuccessful. My father's demands were too high. He wanted Zachary to open the door, move all the supplies upstairs, and let the three of them come out of the basement to resume living together as a group of 6 as before. Of course, Zachary couldn't agree. For one, he couldn't produce a third person since I wasn't there. He knew my father's family didn't really care about me, but once my father realized his daughter was missing, he would at least have to inquire, making it a bargaining chip in the negotiation. Moreover, if he couldn't explain where I had gone, how suspicious would that family of 3 become? A living person who had gone to the basement with them had disappeared, if not harmed by them. Then who? Thinking this way was quite horrifying, wasn't it? How could that family of 3 possibly coexist peacefully with them? Moreover, they didn't have much in the way of supplies, and he was still eyeing the food upstairs. Who wouldn't want to survive a few more days? That night, something was used to block the hole upstairs, and for a while, peace was restored between the two groups. In the middle of the night, I overheard two sinister plans. Upstairs, my father said, I've noticed that the electricity and water supplies are connected between upstairs and downstairs. I'm going to cut off their electricity and water. They'll surrender in 3 days. Old White Flower loudly praised his brilliance. Suddenly she asked, why didn't you think of cutting off their water and electricity earlier? The man didn't respond to her. He probably felt embarrassed to admit that he had only just thought of it. These past few days, although the man seemed calm and composed, he was actually panicking inside. Even if the villa was secure, the relentless waves of attacks from the zombies and people had overwhelmed him, rendering him incapable of rational thought. He was just a man who appeared formidable but was inwardly frail. Old Bai Hua didn't really expect an answer from him. She vented on her own. If I had known, I would have cut off their supplies earlier. Let that little wench be smug for now. Just wait until she comes up. I'll strangle her myself. In the basement, little Serena, can you beat up that chubby boy? Zachary, yes. What do you have in mind, little Serena? Lure the chubby boy down here. He's crucial to those two, with him here. They'll have to listen to us. Zachary, how do you plan to trick him? Little Serena, that kid loves to eat. Haven't you heard him constantly complaining about being hungry? I'll tempt him with a bag of spicy noodles. As long as he reaches for it, you can pull him down. Zachary, he's just been tricked and I hit him with a table leg. Do you think he'll fall for it? Little Serena, let's try. The situation is too disadvantageous for us. We're running out of potatoes. And they don't know yet that we're also low on food, otherwise, they might block the door to prevent us from going up. It turned out that my chubby brother had learned his lesson from being hit too hard by Zachary. Despite little Serena sweetly calling him brother and offering 2 bags of spicy noodles, he didn't fall for it. Not only did he not fall for it, but he also called Old Bai Hua over. Old Bai Hua, knowing people well, immediately understood their intentions and almost went mad. Never underestimate a mother's fighting spirit, especially when she is shamelessly belligerent. She didn't even bother to scold. She simply shouted, "Son, come with Mom to the north balcony." My chubby brother was still confused. Why? As Old Bai Hua pulled him along, she explained, "Silly boy, do you know why that little wench offered you spicy noodles? They want to trick you into going down there and hold you hostage. If you're under their control, your father and I will have to obey them." My chubby brother stumbled, his footsteps faltering, holding an apple and munching on it. I wondered what treasure Old Bai Hua might have hidden on the north balcony. Surely she hadn't stored up another bucket of urine. I remembered there were only a few jars for pickling vegetables up there, which I had tried and failed to use, leaving them untouched. I guessed right, yet I also guessed wrong. I heard my chubby brother grumbling. "You're not going to throw urine again, are you, Mom?" "My hand still hurts. I won't help you carry it." Old Bai Hua scolded him. "Lazy boy, it's not like both your hands are hurting. I'll carry the urine bucket. You help me move those big jars," chubby brother exclaimed, with disgust. "Those are even stinkier. What have you been throwing in there? Even with the door closed, you can smell it." Then I heard Old Bai Hua laugh heartily. "We can't throw out the trash, so I've been tossing in the kitchen waste that we couldn't eat. It's all rotted by now. I'll add some water, stir it up, and give those bad folks downstairs a taste." Indeed, soon after her plan, the basement was cut off from water and electricity. Disaster struck for Zachary and little Serena. I heard little Serena's scream break the silence, Zachary's furious cursing, and even the sound of Zachary slapping little Serena's scream away. After a long while, I heard little Serena incredulously ask, "Zachary, you hit me," before Zachary could respond. I heard little Serena scream again. "What happened? Why is it dark? Is there a power outage?" Before Zachary could answer, Old Bai Hua laughed triumphantly. "Little wretch, not only is there a power outage, but the water is also out. You guys can just drink urine in there." Zachary panicked. "What's going on? What's going on?" He soon found out what was happening because my father spoke up. 14, he ate her. The transactions between men are simple and brutal. After enduring a day and a night of darkness and thirst, Zachary traded 2 packets of hot and sour noodles and 1 packet of rice noodles for 3 cups of water. He drank it all himself. He didn't give a drop to little Serena. I heard little Serena cursing and crying. I guess she also tried to snatch the water from Zachary's hands but failed, and it's likely that Zachary kicked her away because I heard her cry out, "Zachary, how dare you kick me?" Zachary didn't respond to her. I heard the sound of a door slamming and being locked. Had Zachary given up on his childhood crush just like that? For the nth time, I regretted not installing cameras. I really wanted to see what was happening. Then again, even if I had installed cameras, they would be useless without the internet, right? Such a pity. Little Serena was quietly nestled in another room. 2 days later, Zachary negotiated with my father again. This time, he wanted to trade 1 potato for a cup of water. but my father demanded 5 potatoes. While they were negotiating, little Serena's hoarse voice interrupted them. You filthy old man, won't you even ask where your daughter is? She's dead. Zachary killed her, ate her. Both men fell silent instantly. Zachary was the first to speak. She's lying. My father asked, where's Brielle? Zachary didn't speak. My father, making a quick decision, got up. Probably to block the entrance to the basement. Zachary swiftly climbed up. Trying to stop my father from blocking the entrance, I heard the struggle between the two men, the cursing, followed by the hurried footsteps of old Bai Hua, and even more intense fighting. Zachary failed. He tumbled down the stairs, and I heard little Serena's cold laugh, her voice hoarse and shattered. You beast, a man defeated outside, yet at home, he tried to throw his weight around. Zachary couldn't beat my father, but he could beat little Serena. I heard the sounds of fists and kicks, and little Serena's muffled groans and her bitter laugh. You cowardly beast. Gradually, only the sounds of fists and kicks remained. After a while, I heard footsteps, the sound of opening a bottle, swallowing, and sobbing. A long time later, I heard footsteps again, rustling noises, and amid the rustles, little Serena's moans. What are you doing, you beast? Why are you tying me up? A chill inexplicably rose in my heart. What was he planning to do? Soon after, I heard little Serena's terrified hoarse screams. I curled up on the couch, clutching the blanket, cold sweat running down my forehead. I didn't hear Zachary say a word. It seemed like in the whole world, only little Serena's desperate screams echoed. After a long time, I heard footsteps, the sound of the kitchen gas stove being turned on. I don't know how much time passed. In a daze, I heard little Serena's voice again. Zachary, just kill me. Let me die quickly. Zachary, without water, I won't live much longer. Give me a quick end. Zachary, please, kill me. Zachary, I saw my mother, you said. If back then my mom hadn't run off with that man, would I ever have encountered a beast like you? Zachary, I'm watching you from hell, wondering how long you can last. Zachary, give me some wine, please, I'm begging you. For 3 days, little Serena made no more sounds. During these 3 days, Zachary's life was very routine, cooking, eating, staying still. Yes, still. He didn't speak, he didn't move, and one couldn't even hear him going back to his room. I couldn't understand. Could he just be sitting or lying quietly with little Serena in the filthy, chaotic living room? Whether Serena was groaning, cursing, pleading, or whispering something, he remained silent until the 3rd day, when Serena fell silent for a long, long time, with no more sounds at all. I suddenly heard Zachary shout, Sister Serena. I had forgotten how many days it had been since I last heard his voice. When I heard it again, it jolted my mind, snapping me out of the fog. His voice sounded like a worn-out bellows, hoarse and broken, as if he was wailing and screaming. Sister Serena! He was crying, pleading. I heard the panic in his voice as he got up. Sister Serena, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? Please don't die. Don't leave me alone. I was wrong. I was wrong. Please, he cried loudly for a short while, and then his voice faded. Then there was a long silence. Upstairs, old Mrs. White asked, Did you hear that? No one answered her. Old Mrs. White's voice trembled. That woman, she's not making any noise anymore. Old Mrs. White's voice quivered. That man, he's crying, isn't he? Or is it a howl? Suddenly, old Mrs. White screamed in a lowered voice, She's dead, she's dead. My father remained silent. Old Mrs. White cried, her voice choked and suppressed, and she cried for a long time. It was the first time I heard her cry so mournfully. Of course, she rarely cried. She was always wildly laughing. A long, long time passed. I heard my father's voice. There's no more food in the basement. Old Mrs. White's sobbing stopped abruptly. What do we do? We only have a handful of flour and a few onions and potatoes left. My father laughed grimly. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I felt the hairs on my body stand on end. Hunger can turn a person into a devil. I knew that. I just didn't know that the people around me could really turn into devils because of hunger. Was he retaliating against Zachary because Zachary had eaten his daughter? He wanted to eat meat. Maybe. He was already regretting not having taken action sooner. Maybe. If I were the one alive in the basement right now, he would already be plotting how to devour me, chilling to the bone. I exerted all my strength to crawl back into bed, burrow into the covers, and lay in the darkness. I dared not turn on the light, and I don't know why, but I felt that light was more terrifying than darkness. These past few days, I've hardly eaten anything. I can't eat. My body is stiff. To survive, I reluctantly nibble on an apple in desperate times. Even those we love can become our sustenance. I feel nauseous, powerless, trembling all over, and a bone-chilling cold that seems to freeze my entire being. What has become of this world? 15. The real guest arrives. I fell ill again, feverish and groggy. Many images surfaced. I couldn't tell if I was reminiscing or if my soul had returned to the past. Back then, my grandmother wasn't very gentle. She was a proud and noble figure, rarely stooping to hug or embrace like other grandmothers. And I was stubborn too. If she didn't initiate affection, I would never seek it out from her. We lived together, yet each in our own world. She would make a few phone calls, read a few pages, and recline on the lounge chair by the floor-to-ceiling window, squinting at the scenery outside. As for me, I was part of that outside scenery, always with a little shovel, digging here, scooping there, sometimes finding earthworms, joyfully yet cruelly cutting them into pieces with my shovel. Sometimes I'd take a big peach, dig a hole, bury the peach, cover it with soil, and then wait each day for it to sprout and grow. Eventually, my grandmother said it was time for my mother to come to get me. She took my hand and led me into her study to tell me stories. It was awkward, both the storytelling and the listening. It took several days to adapt to this new way of interaction. After reading for a few days, she began teaching me some strange symbols. I found these symbols more comforting than the storytelling. I was intrigued and made an effort to remember them, even using them to communicate simply with my grandmother. When my mother came to get me, my grandmother hugged me tightly for a long time, reluctant to let go. At that moment, I was somewhat stunned. Her embrace was warm and sweet, but I was already so grown up. It was embarrassing to be embraced now after being denied that affection in childhood. I can't remember the last time I saw my grandmother. My mother told me she had passed away. She didn't cry, and neither did I. I simply couldn't believe it. That lady, so robust and vigorous, how could she just be gone? Before long, my mother divorced and left. My father remarried, and my stepmother moved in. My overweight brother became the sole recipient of my father's affection, while I was reduced to a grease-soaked rag. My presence only seemed to irritate my father. And with a few provocations from the malicious old woman, I would end up being beaten. In a dazed state, various scenes floated before my eyes like a carousel of images, impossible to ignore. Even though I was clearly aware that it was all a dream, I could still hear the old woman's sharp, melodious scolding, crying, and pleading, yet I couldn't wake up. The old woman's voice was sharp and sorrowful, her crying heart-wrenching. What had happened? Why was she crying like that? Startled, I suddenly sat up, felt dizzy, and collapsed back, but then I was fully awake, listening intently. The old woman cried heartbreakingly, "Please, I beg you, don't beat my son. I'm telling the truth, really. Brielle was eaten by them." Little Serena said it. Truly, she said it herself. She said Brielle was killed and eaten by Zachary. A man's voice commanded, "Shut her up." The old woman's mouth was forcibly stuffed. Despite this, muffled noises could still be heard, apparently. You can't speak if your mouth isn't open, but if it's forced too wide, you also can't speak. The man spoke again. "What's the situation below?" Someone replied, "The woman is reduced to a skeleton. The man has gone mad." The man asked further, "Only one woman, just one." There was a pause before the speaker continued. "Bring Zachary up here, Captain. That boy, he's no longer human. That basement living room is filthy with feces and trash everywhere. He has clean rooms available but chooses to stay in that filth, clinging to a skeletal frame. It's unnerving." The man scoffed. "In these times, cannibalism isn't surprising, is it? If we had arrived even 2 days later, this woman would have been dinner for her husband and son, right?" With a grunt, he added, "Bring the boy here. I want to see if he's really insane. The higher-ups want Brielle alive, and now she's missing without a trace. How do we explain this?" Understood. Footsteps were then heard. Soon after, dragging sounds followed. What a mess. The man's disgust was evident. "Zachary, where's Brielle?" he asked. No answer. It sounded like someone was kicked. I heard the thud of a body hitting the ground and a moan. "Speak up. Where's Brielle?" No answer. More kicking. "Speak up. Where's Brielle?" The questioning and kicking continued in a loop until someone reported, "Captain, this boy won't last much longer." The man coldly huffed, "Spare his life. Take him back with us." He then ordered, "Number 2, take another team down for another search." I refused to believe that this guy could completely devour someone, leaving nothing behind, not even the bones, someone remarked. Then another voice said, "Third, throw this man outside. That old fool just watched his daughter be devoured. Messing up my mission, let him be buried alongside his daughter." There were dragging sounds, accompanied by sobs of terror that were impossible to ignore. After a while, silence reigned upstairs. Downstairs, however, there was the sound of rummaging through boxes and drawers. I heard the one they called second cursing. Zachary must have truly lost his mind. In such a condition, he actually stayed with a corpse for days. If he's not crazy, who would do such a thing? He continued muttering to himself while directing his men to search the basement for over half an hour, but they returned empty-handed. Upstairs, the captain heard the report and snorted, "Get some water, clean this kid up, and take him away." Then I heard the clatter of footsteps, which stopped shortly after. "Leave this mother and daughter here. Block the gate." Third, "Go lure some more zombies here. Surround the place with them." Third asked, "Captain, why though?" This mother and daughter aren't any good either. Might as well let their whole family reunite. The captain cursed him. You know nothing. I want to see who among this mother and daughter will survive. He emphasized again. Bring me more zombies. Make sure no one gets in or out. I still suspect that Brielle might not be truly dead. The footsteps gradually faded away as those men left. It felt like a century had passed. Then I heard my chubby younger brother wailing, "Mom, Dad, Dad." He cried unrestrainedly, his voice cracking in a way unique to boys his age, which was profoundly unsettling. Eventually, he cried himself out, leaving only soft sobs. Suddenly, Old White Flower spoke up. "Son, stop crying. We won't starve. Mom hid some food. We can hold up for a few more days." His crying abruptly stopped. "Mom, didn't you say days ago that we had no food left?" Old White Flower chuckled coldly. "I saved it up, kept it a secret. Now it's just the two of us. Stay calm." His sobs returned. "But Dad, what about Dad?" Old White Flower sighed deeply. "Silly boy, Dad's gone. It's just us now. Don't worry. I kept some of those sprouting potatoes to plant, secretly placed them on the rooftop. I also hid some packets of noodles, a bag of flour, and a bag of rice. We'll manage to survive." For the first time, I heard Old White Flower's voice so calm and serene, not sharp, not harsh, not dramatic, just tranquil. It was as if her husband hadn't just been thrown into a pile of zombies, as if she was a woman who had never had a husband and was only living with her son. I've witnessed zombies eating people. It was in the initial days of the apocalypse, through the surveillance cameras installed in my house. Yes, the one my father wanted me to transfer to him. I had cameras both inside and outside. And I even hacked into the property management system. Those were the days I watched the world outside slowly turn from civilized to blood-soaked. In my neighborhood, on the second day of the apocalypse, the property security guard who opened the gate was greeted by a zombie. He became the first victim. He was tightly grasped by a zombie, and despite his desperate struggles, the zombie's strength was overwhelming. He didn't last long before his head drooped, and he died, soon. The man's blood sprayed all over the zombie and pooled on the ground. As his body was discarded, early in the morning, there were few people around the neighborhood, just a handful of property security personnel and early exercisers, all of whom were drawn to the scene. Thus, the second victim emerged. A zombie grabbed an elderly morning exerciser who was too terrified to move and bit into his neck. A young exerciser, seemingly out of nowhere, produced a stick and swung it at the zombie. Despite his bluster, the stick only hit the zombie's shoulder, causing it to stagger momentarily, drop the elderly man, and then advance towards the young man step by step. The young man's legs gave in, and he stumbled backward, only to bump into a security guard who had just risen from the ground. The guard grabbed the young man and bit into his neck. The young man, having forgotten even to struggle, only screamed in agony when bitten, and after a few feeble scratches with his hands and feet, fell silent. In less than an hour, 3 security guards, 4 exercisers, and the first zombie who had entered the gate, a total of 8, were wandering around the neighborhood. Soon, people came out to see what was happening, to go to work, to buy breakfast, to stroll leisurely, or to take their children downstairs to play, only to be knocked down by zombies and gradually rise again to join their ranks. Men, women, and children of all ages, smeared with crimson blood, lunged at any living person they saw, or aimlessly wandered around the neighborhood like robots when no one was around. Puddles of blood turned from bright red to dark red on the ground, as if a horror movie was unfolding. It was a scene beyond description. Some people saw it from their windows and screamed, attracting the attention of the slowly wandering zombies below who uniformly looked up to locate the source of the noise. Thus, the entire neighborhood turned into a city of the dead. People hid in their homes, daring not to make a sound, only crying, screaming, and seeking help on their phones, too terrified even to glance outside. In my mind, the appearance of those zombies varied, some with crooked heads, some with hollow stomachs, and some smaller zombies following adult zombies closely. When the adult zombies bit people, so did they. When the adult zombies wandered aimlessly, so did they. My father, was he thrown into the pile of zombies? Had he become one of them, or did he not even qualify to become a zombie? I remember, on the last day before the internet went down, how zombies would swarm a living person, gnawing them down to their skeleton. I don't know if my father is now just a skeleton. My head is splitting, I can't close my eyes, and when I try to see, I can discern nothing but darkness without the lights on. That was my father. A father who never held me in his arms, a father who never truly spoke a word to me, a father who never cared about me. In my memory, when my mother was around, my father was a silent and graceful man standing by her side. When she was gone, he became an indifferent, greasy, and irritable man. What I remember most vividly was an incident when old Baihua commented, "This child doesn't look like you at all." With one kick, he sent me crashing into the wall. I slid down like a broken sack. Unable to get up as I lay sprawling on the cold, hard floor, it was the first time I truly felt how chilling the floor was and how unyielding the wall. It was also the first time I fully realized that my father had absolutely no warmth towards me, not even a trace. For a while, I wished I could kill him. I even fantasized countless times about how to end his life without anyone knowing, and I actually researched it at that time. I felt that my sole reason for living each day was to eventually erase my father from this world. It wasn't until my mother came and gave me a house, allowing me to step out of that dysfunctional family, that I stopped seeing them and my hatred gradually subsided. Later on, it turned into indifference, treating them as less than strangers. Who would have known that when doomsday came, they would find their way to me? Those people came looking for me, obviously because of my mother. Failing to find me and complete their mission, my father became their scapegoat, and they used him as food for the zombies. My mind felt like it had exploded. Should I cry? After all, he was my biological father, but there were no tears. Should I celebrate as if I had gotten my revenge? But there was no feeling of exhilaration. I fell asleep again. In a hazy dream, I saw many people again. When I woke up, I heard the voice of my chubby brother. Mom, Mom, there are so many zombies, so many. Old Baihua's voice tried to sound calm. It's okay, those people did it on purpose. Don't worry, son, they are safer than humans. As long as they don't get in, we have nothing to fear. It seems these people are relentless, trying to surround this place with zombies to prevent anyone from leaving or entering, suspecting that I'm not dead yet. It's okay, at least for now. I don't have to worry. I am safe. 17. Winter turns to spring. These days, old Baihua and her son have been very quiet. One day, I heard my chubby brother say, Mom, it's snowing again. Old Baihua replied, today is your birthday. Do you remember? Mom will make you a bowl of hand-pulled noodles. Little brother asked, Mom, do we have any food left? Old White Flower replied, yes, don't worry. There's still that bag of noodles we haven't opened yet. I'll open it today for your birthday. Little brother said, Mom, those zombies outside look like they're almost dead, just standing in the snow, motionless. Old White Flower remarked, those things probably fear the cold too. Little brother asked, Mom, is Dad out there too? Old White Flower sighed, son, don't think about it. That's not your father anymore. Little brother said, Mom, I miss Dad. Old White Flower gave a wry smile. My good child, let's not dwell on that. What's most important now is that we survive. Little brother asked, can we survive? Old White Flower answered firmly, yes, we can. Little brother asked, Mom, will those people come again? Old White Flower scoffed. Whether they come or not, we're no match for them. They treat us like ants. They won't bother harming us unless provoked. Little brother asked, who are they? Old White Flower sighed. Silly child, what do you think? Ever since we came here, wave after wave of people have tried to break down the door, none succeeding. This place is built so solidly. We spend every day here worrying about food. But when have we ever worried about someone breaking in? Old White Flower sighed again. But those people, they got in effortlessly. Not even the high walls and electric fences could stop them. Did you see that they even had guns and ammunition? Do normal people have such things? Little brother asked. Are they soldiers? Old White Flower responded. Not necessarily. These people have a bandit vibe, not like military folks. More like they're out for blood. Little brother asked. Why are they looking for Brielle? After a long silence, Old White Flower finally said, I guess it has something to do with Brielle's mother. The silence lingered. After a while, little brother asked again, Mom, what do we do when we run out of noodles? Old White Flower replied, in a few days, I plan to check the basement. Little brother asked, why, didn't Dad say there's no food left in the basement? Old White Flower responded, I'm starting to doubt that. Brielle isn't dead. Just like that person said, no body, no death. Little brother asked, can we find her? Will we have food if we find her? Old White Flower answered, I don't know, but we'll look first. Later, I heard the sounds of Old White Flower and her son entering the basement. They were cleaning. Little brother asked, Mom, why are we tidying up here? Old White Flower said, I'm worried that if someone else comes in, it would be good to have a hiding spot here, in the quiet of their work. Little brother said, Mom, I don't have any energy left. Old White Flower comforted him gently. Rest, my good son. Mom still has strength. I'll handle the cleaning. Soon, I heard little brother exclaim, Mom, there's a packet of hot and sour noodles. Old White Flower was thrilled. Where? Little brother laughed joyfully. Under the sofa. It must have accidentally fallen there when they moved the sofa. The mother and son's spirits lifted, and they sped up their cleaning. Actually finding something new, I found 2 wrinkled potatoes, a pack of spicy chicken feed, and a pack of purple sweet potato flour. Old Baihua held the pack of purple sweet potato flour and cried out, Son, this pack is about 2 pounds. It will last us several more days. Tonight, I'll make you dumpling soup. After tidying up the living room and making a round through each room, I surprisingly found over 10 packs of instant noodles under little Serena's bed mattress. and 3 onions sprouting tall in the kitchen. This discovery gave me an indescribable feeling about little Serena and Zachary. What kind of people are they, really? The mother and son were exceptionally excited, each consuming a pack of instant noodles that night. After eating, old Baihua hurried her plump brother to bed and spent a long time inspecting the basement by herself. She found a bottle of wine. I heard the sound of opening the bottle, the sound of drinking, and the sound of coughing from drinking too eagerly. I heard sobbing. I heard stumbling footsteps. I heard sounds of crying and laughter. Half the night, possibly fueled by the energy from the instant noodles, old Baihua wandered around the basement while drinking. When she finally collapsed from exhaustion, she triggered a mechanism on the door of my room in the basement, with a click. After a pause, I heard old Baihua's cheer. That door had another door within it. Few would think to install another door on their room's door. My door is indeed thicker than usual, nearly 20 centimeters, resembling a tall and thin safe. I had stuffed it with compressed biscuits. Originally, my grandmother installed this door to test me, to see if I remembered the special symbols between us as she stored some items inside. After I found them, I moved the items to my secret base. The door felt hollow when I knocked on it, which made me uneasy, so I stuffed it solid with compressed biscuits. Unintentionally, old Baihua discovered it. I heard old Baihua cheerfully waking up my plump brother, and the two of them joyously hugged the compressed biscuits. It gave me an indescribable feeling. This is a good thing, right? It keeps them alive. At any moment, I can hear their voices. Knowing there are others in this world, though invisible and untouchable, they are close at hand. Ensuring I'm not alone in a silent, mad world, old Baihua and her son moved to the basement. This winter was very cold, so cold that it was nearly impossible to stay upstairs, and the air conditioning was of little use. The basement was somewhat warmer. I heard them moving back and forth many times, likely moving everything they could from upstairs. The severe cold lasted 2 months. I checked the thermometer in my secret base. The lowest temperature was 10 degrees Celsius. I could only imagine how cold it was outside. Many times, I heard old Baihua and her son discussing the heavy snow outside and the zombies buried in it. I heard my plump brother complaining of the cold, and old Baihua suggesting they make robes out of blankets. I then remembered that when they arrived, they brought no clothes other than what they were wearing. Old Baihua could wear some of my clothes, but my plump brother only had the option of modified blankets. It was too cold. I brought several thick mats to the lounge area, added a lazy boy chair on top of the mats, and brought over a thick blanket. Wearing a thick cotton pajama, I lay on the lazy boy, covered with the blanket. Various snacks are on the small cart next to me, and the projector across is playing Soldier Assault. Finally, I'm just like any other ordinary girl, snacking and binge-watching dramas. If I were following empresses in the palace, I'd probably fit in even more. After revisiting drawing sword once more, I lay on the beanbag, no longer needing a blanket. Once I had set up the wood stove and made my 10th pot of pork belly with sauerkraut. Spring had arrived. The temperature in my secret base had reached around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius, so I no longer needed thick cotton trousers and coats. 18. Someone came again. I've thought about it many times. No, I'm always thinking, when will the cold pass? When will spring arrive? When will those people come to find me again? When will the zombies disappear? When will the apocalypse end? When will society return to normal? When will the world go back to the way it was? I think I've prepared enough supplies. I think my secret base is hidden and secure. I think I must believe that life can return to the way it was before, although my previous life wasn't that great, and the people around me weren't very friendly. At least those people were alive, fresh, complete, and capable of thinking and speaking, like the mother and son next door. I hope those people never come back. I hope my mother hasn't died. I hope everything can return to the way it was before, back to when I was a solitary and indifferent freshman. I even hope my father could still confidently demand the house from me, with his old white flower in tow. I thought winter had passed and spring had arrived, and that everything would get better. But I didn't expect things not only failed to improve but got even worse. That day, I made a pot of stewed noodles. Without fresh green beans, I used soaked dried ones, and it was still delicious. Just as I sat on the sofa and took a few bites, I heard the panic sound of my chubby younger brother running downstairs, the messy footsteps accompanied by frantic shouts. "Mom, Mom," old White Flower anxiously asked. "What's wrong, son?" The boy gasped for a long time in panic before he fearfully said, Those zombies moved again. Old White Flower, they moved again. The snow has just melted, and they're active." Chubby brother, "Yes, Mom, really. I went upstairs and saw it clearly. They moved like robots, very stiff, but they are indeed moving." Old White Flower's tone also became panicked. I thought, with it being so cold outside, and them buried in the snow for so many days, their bones would have frozen crisp. I didn't expect they could still stand up. A few more days passed. Chubby brother again cried out in panic. Mom, Mom, I'm scared. Old White Flower was silent for a while. Then I heard her climbing the stairs, wanting to see for herself. I threw the raisins I was holding onto the table and listened intently to their footsteps and conversation. Old White Flower sighed. The warmer the weather gets, the more active these things become. And they don't walk as stiffly as before. Chubby brother. How come they don't starve or freeze to death? Is there really no cure for them? Old White Flower, silly son, don't you remember those people? They took them down with a single shot, killing a large number in no time. Haven't you noticed? These monsters are afraid of headshots. As long as their heads are blown off, they're left with a useless skeleton, instantly lying down, sighing. She added, we don't have that capability, had to hide again. Chubby brother said, Mom, look. It's too scary, Old Lady Baihua replied. The weather has warmed up. After a whole winter, the flesh on those bodies has decayed. Now that it's getting hot, the flesh can no longer cling to their bodies, Chubby brother remarked. In a few days, there will be nothing left but skeletons. As mother and son discussed, they retreated back into the basement. Chubby brother went up every day to check things out. He would come running back down in a panic every day. About 10 days later, Chubby brother ran back to the basement and slammed the door, which the family of 3 had previously broken a large hole in. It seemed he had blocked the hole with something, as I heard him shouting for Old Lady Baihua to bring some cloth strips to stuff into the cracks. Old Lady Baihua asked what was wrong, and in a crying tone he said, Mom, I can smell the rotten stench up there. It's disgusting, and there are so many flies. They've covered the bodies completely. I glanced at the mincemeat tofu in my bowl and instantly lost my appetite. I put down the bowl, stood up, and began to patrol my secret base. Everything looked just as it did when I first arrived. Being inside a large mountain, there was no need for air conditioning. It was warmer than outside in the winter and cooler in the summer. In past years, the temperature here was quite stable during both summer and winter. This year, however, was clearly different. The temperature dropped to 10 degrees in winter, which was unusually cold. With such a cold winter, I feared the summer would be exceptionally hot. The zombies outside, their bodies already dead flesh, had frozen like ice blocks over the winter. Come summer, they would surely decay, and this was just in the suburbs. What about the city? Was the whole city permeated with a foul stench? Had it become a paradise for flies? This world had turned from bloody to putrid. I refused to drink spring water anymore. Perhaps I was being paranoid, but I always felt that all those dirty and bloody things outside would fall to the ground, seep into the soil. I couldn't bear to think further. I began drinking bottled water and started using a water purifier. I cleaned everything with fresh water every day. Feeling somehow that everything was unclean, I think I was becoming anxious. Old Lady Baihua and her son refused to go upstairs, and I couldn't learn about the outside world through their conversations, until one day, around noon. It felt hot, these days. Because of the heat, I wore only a tank top and shorts, yet it was still unbearably hot. The temperature had reached 29 degrees, making me restless. If it was this hot here, outside it must be over 40 degrees. I walked to the edge of the spring, sat down, and dipped my feet into the water, feeling instantly cooler. Leaning against a large rock next to the pool, I picked up a packet of plum candies placed on the rock, popped one into my mouth, and felt blissfully refreshed. After eating a few plums, recalling how I had tossed and turned the previous night due to the heat without thinking to turn on the air conditioning, I started feeling drowsy and struggled to keep my eyes open. In my haze, the sound of a violently opening door and chaotic footsteps approaching from afar jolted me awake. I sat up straight immediately. Soon, I heard the rough cursing and the violent sound of the basement door being opened, followed by the screams of Old Lady Baihua and her son. With no opportunity to even speak, I was cast aside. After the chaotic footsteps faded, the quiet was pierced by a cold, hard voice. This place has turned into a hidden paradise. The air here is truly refreshing. Are these the mother and son? Didn't old Xing say there's hardly any food left here? How are these two still doing well? Yes, I'll ask. I heard someone reply as they walked. Then in the blink of an eye, there was the sound of something heavy hitting the ground, followed by Old Baihua's groans. Speak. How have you survived until now, sir? I was cleaning the basement. Under the sofa, I found a packet of spicy noodles, and, under the mattress of little Serena's bed, I found many packets of instant noodles. In the kitchen, I found a packet of purple sweet potato powder and some onions. Sir, those two don't cook or clean. They must have overlooked these items. She spoke in a disjointed manner, but she managed to explain the situation clearly. I narrowed my eyes. Old Baihua was smart to have kept quiet about the compressed biscuits. The cold, hard voice laughed. This is really interesting. What's his name? Zachary, right? He ate his own girlfriend and didn't even know she had hidden instant noodles under the mattress. What a curious couple, another voice said. Actually, Zachary's girlfriend was Brielle. The one he ate was his mistress, a peripheral figure to us. Heh, the cold voice scoffed, then quickly started searching the place Zachary mentioned. Yes, another voice responded. 19, Silent World. Suddenly, my heart tensed up. The place Zachary mentioned. What place? How could Zachary have mentioned it? Wasn't Zachary insane? Could he have recovered? Or was he never insane? Just pretending. What did he reveal? Need I even think about it? Naturally, it concerns me. These people, are they still not giving up? Before I could ponder further, I quickly heard the sound of a secret door being opened. They found it. My heart skipped a beat. Then I heard the second voice excitedly report, Commander, Zachary wasn't lying. We found the secret door. Humph, came the sneering, cold voice. Such an easily discovered thing. Were you idiots eating shit before? Brielle disappeared without a trace and you didn't think to check. Get in there and search thoroughly, inch by inch. Look for fingerprints, footprints, any traps. Search carefully. Yes, I heard the footsteps of 3 or 4 people. I couldn't hear what was happening inside the secret passage. I wasn't worried about them finding my fingerprints or footprints. The passage was stony and not easy to leave marks on. Besides, I had cleaned the secret base when I originally returned, ensuring no traces were left. I wasn't even afraid of them knocking on the walls. The secret entrance to the base was a large stone. After entering, it was firmly stuck in place. Knocking on it wouldn't produce a hollow sound, leaving no room for suspicion of further space. What worried me was that these people might find my listening devices. I wasn't afraid when old Bai Hua and her son were cleaning. I had hidden it too well. In fact, I wasn't afraid of those searching the secret passage either. My only concern was the person with the cold, hard voice waiting in the basement living room. He paced through the basement. He moved slowly and deliberately, pacing back and forth. After about 15 minutes, I felt my heart couldn't take it anymore. Finally, he stopped, sat down, and after a moment of silence, he called out, You, come here. I then heard old Bai Hua scrambling over in panic. Master, what master? I ask. You answer, if you dare deceive me with even a single word, I'll send your son to join his father, understand? Yes, I understand, you ask, and I will tell the truth. When you were abusing Brielle back then, how did she react? Did she resist, or did she quietly endure your bullying? She initially resisted. I didn't really abuse her. I just often told her father in front of her that she looked nothing like him, which would make her father hit her. Oh. You're quite cunning, aren't you? And how did she behave when her father hit her? At first, she would cry and look at her father with wide eyes, but later on, her face became expressionless. I remember once, her father kicked her into a wall, and she fell down and couldn't get up. I saw her eyes, they were so lifeless. As if she had lost the will to live. What do you know about her relationships with Zachary and that Serena girl? I'll tell the truth. I was the other woman myself before I married Brielle's father. Brielle was too young to know what kind of woman men like. That Serena girl, I could tell right away what kind she was. The type who would seduce Zachary with just a flick of her finger. I think Brielle, who had always been alone, really loved Zachary. That's why she secretly took him to the basement. Unfortunately, Zachary couldn't let go of little Serena and ended up bringing her along too. Zachary, though young, is just like Brielle's father deep down, selfish and shameless. With the 3 of them in the basement, and him being the only man, he surely took advantage of the situation, wanting to have both Brielle and Serena for himself. Brielle, heartbroken and disillusioned, refused to comply, and ultimately, she suffered for it. You sure know a lot. Please, spare me. I was wrong. I was harsh to Brielle. I am selfish, but I never wanted her dead. Truly, please spare me and my son. The man didn't listen to her pleas. An hour later, the people who had entered the secret passage came back, with no results. Captain, no traces were found. At the end of the secret passage, on the other side of the mountain, 2 pieces of torn clothing were discovered. Show her the clothes. See if they belong to Brielle. Soon. They heard old White Flower's trembling voice. Yes, they are hers. Those days, she almost wore that blue hoodie every day. Is she dead? The squad leader asked. Wore it every day. What do you mean? Isn't this her home? Doesn't she have other clothes to wear at her own house? Old White Flower, her teeth chattering in fear, replied, Yes, this is her home, and there are many of her clothes here. I am even wearing her clothes. But she wore that same piece every day. Probably given by her mother, or no, maybe by Zachary. Is she really dead? No one answered her. The squad leader then asked, Are there zombies behind the mountain? A few, not many. I took care of them. The place is open, and with so much time passing, they probably moved on. The squad leader, with a tone of resentment, stood up. Let's go. Throw that kid Zachary into the zombie pile. Yes. What about the mother and son? Captain, should we throw them to those creatures outside? Ha, the squad leader's voice bore a strange tone. Keep them, I want to see if they can survive. The sound of messy footsteps gradually faded into the distance. After a long while, I heard the cries of Old White Flower and her son, having narrowly escaped death. I, slowly rising from the ground, felt my legs weaken, looked down at my feet, probably pale and stark from soaking too long in the pool water. This time, I should really be safe. Right? I gave myself a break, every day doing nothing. Just lying down. After lying down for many days, feeling as if my body had fallen apart, I finally felt warmth again and got up. I walked over to the mirror to examine myself, pale, thin, so thin it nearly distorted my appearance, wearing a loose tank top and shorts, my arms slender, shoulders almost showing the outline of bones protruding, my calves so thin they felt like they could snap. Was this even a human anymore? Or just a ghost floating about? I tried to remember. When was the last time I had a proper meal? I forgot. It seems my mind has also become muddled recently, many things feeling surreal, as if they happened and yet didn't. I sighed. This can't continue. At the very least, I must hold on until I get definite news about my mother. What if, just what if she is still alive? I started taking cooking seriously. Every day, I made sure to have porridge, milk powder, soy milk, vegetables, meat, steamed buns, noodles, and rice. I knew how to cook. But my skills were basic at best, not particularly flavorful. To encourage myself to eat more, I picked up a cookbook and learned how to make soups, dough-based dishes, and dumplings with great enthusiasm. Surprisingly, time began to fly by. In the mountains, the passage of years went unnoticed. Summer passed, and as the weather cooled, my days were filled with cooking, exercising, reading, and watching TV. Life quietly and peacefully moved on. The mother and son next door weren't having as miserable a time as others expected. They had cleared the zombies outside their secret tunnel with headshots, providing a path for Mrs. Baihua to venture out. Coincidentally, there was an orchard outside. I suspected that the zombies, whose heads had been blown off, were the original owners of the orchard. Sneaking out of the tunnel, Mrs. Baihua and her son found plenty of apples, persimmons, and chestnuts, and even discovered rice, flour, and seasonings in the small cabin guarding the orchard. Like squirrels, they joyfully stored a lot of supplies. After storing their food, they cleverly sealed the entrance to the tunnel and locked the door leading to their basement, settling down comfortably underground. Every day, Mrs. Baihua diligently processed the fruits into jams and dried fruits, seemingly to extend their shelf life. After all he had been through, my chubby little brother wasn't scared at all. In fact, he even started to read and study. Truly, these were the peaceful days. 20. She was right there all along. When I finally found the cotton robe I wore last year, a year had passed. When I put on shorts and a tank top again, a year and a half had gone by. I wore the cotton robe 3 times, and the shorts and tank top 3 times. All in all, I've been hiding in this secret base for a total of 3 years, many times. I thought I could go outside, especially when Mrs. Baihua and her son, growing ever bolder, frequently went out to find food, but I dared not. The second time I wore the cotton robe, I heard an uplifting message on the radio. From it, I drew 3 conclusions. First, this zombie outbreak was a multi-point, uncontrollable virus eruption worldwide. Humanity faced an existential threat, with over half of the global population infected, either turning into zombies or becoming their prey. Second, after fierce battles, humans gradually built several safe havens and protected many medical experts who were developing a vaccine against the virus, hoping it would be successful and humans would no longer be vulnerable to the virus. Third, after regrouping and research, humans were systematically organizing efforts to eliminate zombies and clear the traces they left behind. After the initial panic, killing zombies was no longer a particularly difficult task. But erasing the traces they left was complex and laborious, requiring significant resources. After much thought, I realized I didn't need to go to any safe haven. I wouldn't and couldn't fight zombies, nor could I clear their traces. All I could do was to honestly stay here and wait, and so, I waited for 3 years. That day, I stared at the large rock blocking the entrance to the secret base. I stared blankly for half the day. Just the night before last, upon hearing the news that the vaccine had been successfully developed and the zombies had been eradicated, I had resolved to go outside and take a look. But when the moment came, I hesitated. As I wrestled with my decision, a voice came from behind me. Startled, I spun around. What was that sound? Could it be Old White Blossom? Wasn't she up all night making jam? And hadn't gotten out of bed yet today. Before I could gather my thoughts, the door to my cold storage room opened. My heart leapt to my throat, and I instinctively shrunk back against the stone behind me. What was it? What could it be? It was a person, a woman, a smiling woman, a woman crying as she ran towards me, a woman who fiercely hugged me and sobbed uncontrollably. I stiffened, unable to open my mouth or speak. My mind went blank, and I fainted. I don't know how long I was unconscious. I felt someone holding me, in a warm embrace, softly sobbing, murmuring quietly. I cried in my dreams, uncontrollably. It was her, she was here, she wasn't dead, she was right beside me. It was my mother. When I woke up and saw my mother's eyes swollen from crying, I actually smiled. Mom, I hadn't spoken in a long time and found it difficult to speak. Tears streamed down her face again as she hugged me and cried, Brielle. Brielle, my baby, you're awake. You finally woke up. You scared me to death. I wasn't in a hurry, waiting for her to finish crying before I began to speak. Did you lie to me? My mother paused, her mouth opening slightly. What? I snorted. Don't play dumb. This villa complex, it was invested in by Grandma, wasn't it? And the uncompleted construction, was that also Grandma's doing? All for you. My mother looked embarrassed. Brielle, you. I raised my hand to stop her. She could carve out such a big secret base from a complete mountain for me. I don't believe she didn't prepare a backup plan for you. Compared to me, you were her favorite. Ever since I discovered that secret base, I've been like a startled bird, not knowing what you've been doing outside that made Grandma hollow out half a mountain. I guessed what kind of backup plan she would prepare for you, guessed which mountain you might be inside, but I never guessed you were right next door. Why, what exactly did you do? What does this virus have to do with you? Who are those people? My mother, at a loss for words, finally sighed deeply. You're too much like your grandmother, who gave birth to me, and I gave you. Our lineage comes from a strange bloodline, said to resemble the legendary witches, destined to bear only one daughter, unable to conceive again. A long, long time ago, our family has been researching why this is. After going to university, Mom occasionally followed a lesser-known professor, a top expert in genetics. She frowned, seemingly recalling the past. After I married your father, we soon had you, and your grandmother had me follow my mentor closely to study and see if we could uncover our family's secret code, she explained. Later, my mentor and I joined an international organization to participate in a confidential research project. After a while, my mentor suddenly brought me back to our country and asked me to help your grandmother establish a secret research base. It turned out that under the guise of hospital research, the international organization was conducting experiments on genetic modification, attempting to initiate a human selective extinction plan. My mentor discovered their plan and decided to conduct counter-research, which necessitated a secret research base. In the 5 or 6 years before your grandmother completed the base, I led a life of constant moving and hiding with my mentor, changing locations frequently and being pursued by many. After staying at the research base for a few years, we noticed signs that someone had discovered us, and that's when I thought of you. She clasped her hands together, nervously twisting her fingers. I'm sorry, my dear. I've been so neglectful and only reached out to you to use you. I used the fact that you were being mistreated by your stepmother to reveal myself, getting caught by them in exchange for a chance to see you. She bowed her head. I diverted their attention to you and me while simultaneously participating in their research and helping them look for my mentor, all the while planning my escape. I chuckled. So, when you messaged me to run, was that when you were escaping? She sighed. Yes, I was actually heading in the same direction as you. We almost escaped together. So, the vaccine, did your mentor create that? She nodded. I scoffed. Not very successful, was it? Almost 10 years, right? How many have died before you figured it out? My biological father, the man who had just stepped into my bedroom, sporting a head of graying hair, stood there somewhat embarrassed. My mother became even more awkward, like a child who had done something wrong. Brielle, I'm sorry. He is my mentor, and indeed your father. His hair is white because it's naturally white. He's actually not much older than me. Just 7 years older. I'm sorry. I scoffed again. All these years. They insulted and beat me, calling me a bastard, and it turns out it was true. I turned away, refusing to look at them any longer. I still walked out of the secret base. The outside air was fresh. The grass was green. The sky was blue. The clouds were white. The sunlight was somewhat blinding. I greedily stood in the sunlight, feeling its warmth for the first time in years. The bustling crowd brought back a nostalgic noise, and I realized I had finally come back. That was the end of the story. Little Serena died, Zachary died, my so-called father died. Oh, indeed he wasn't my father. My mother later caught up to me to explain that when she married my dad, he knew she was marrying him just to give me a status. Their marriage was a transaction of interests, and many, many others died. I survived. My mother survived. My mother's mentor, my true father, is still alive. It's said that those who created the virus, intending to select and exterminate humanity, are also still alive. Old White Blossom and her son are alive too. I visited them. Old White Blossom no longer sports crayon Shin-chan-styled eyebrows. Instead, her features have become quite delicate and refined. My chubby little brother isn't chubby anymore. Instead, he's grown tall and slim, resembling the suave demeanor his father had back in the day. Many people are still alive, living life vibrantly. Well, that's how it is. Everyone has forgotten and started a new life. What am I still hung up on?